Some of you might notice that Greg Sutcliffe isn't on here. He is still around. Hopefully some of you may know he's moved over to the Fedora infrastructure, but is still heavily involved with a lot of the Ansible. Good stuff. So, we're here to talk about the community. So what cool stuff have folks done? The Ansible releases, so this is all our upstream work, has been continued to be opened up really well. And as I mentioned earlier, Anwish has done a great job. We've got some new release managers. So these are folks releasing the Ansible package, so pip install Ansible, and also the Ansible community execution environments. This is pure community work, right? Every bit of infrastructure, all the signing, all that stuff is all publicly available. It's in GitHub. No stuff behind the Red Hat VPN anymore. And this is a great example of where we've empowered our community, and we've brought this whole release process around here, and governance, right? Because release is part technical, it's partly around, keeping up with the flow and responding to changes. We've done three major releases last year, 11, 12 and 13. We've also got Trey on the team that's been trained up as a full mentor. And just these releases are almost getting boring, I guess now. They're nicely ticking along, things work quite well. There's the occasional hiccup, but they're few and far in between, and it's a real testament to what the community's done. So like I said, all these slides are going to be available. We've got these nice little call-out boxes here with the clickable links where if you want to find out more, there's generally a link to a forum post or maybe a part of the Ansible documentation where you can go in find out more and join in from home. So one of the huge projects we finished at the end of last year was the move to read the docs. And I'm not going to say I could spend like 40 minutes talking about this, but thankfully Don at the back of the room is going to be talking about this at 4 o'clock in here. No, in the other room, sorry, in 14. This is another bit of infrastructure that was partly managed by Red Hat. It was a bit clunky. It involved Jenkins. It involved some different jobs. We've moved all of this to read the docs. And one of the great advantages of this is now when you raise the PR against anything that has docs in, the little checks will run and you'll get a live rendered version of your documentation. You've got to remember, Ansible is at a scale, it's big. So if you're just editing a single markdown file, you know what it's going to look like. But if you're building a whole docs item and to alter a theme, or maybe go and update some RST restructured text links, you need to build the whole thing to make sure it works and then to get some feedback. And we have this now thanks to the work that Don and some of the community folks have done. Still a bit more to do, but we're sort of 90% of the way through there. And this is always a good point to call out that docs is a great way for people to come and contribute to Ansible. It doesn't matter if you're brand new to Ansible. In fact, I'd say those of you that are brand new can even offer a lot more, because you can hold us accountable. You can go, well, what doesn't make sense as a first-time contributor? I don't read the docs these days to go and do an Ansible thing, because it's just muscle memory, right? But for those of you just sort of starting out your automation journey, tell us if we jump, if we go from step 1 to 2 and it doesn't make sense, tell us what the extra details are. You don't have to necessarily contribute the words, right? Don't worry if English is your second or third language, right? We can help with that, but it's a great way to contribute to the community. Maybe get a little green box on GitHub, or have some fun on there. One of the other parts of this is we've got a new unified doc site, so everything is now on docs.ansible.com. So we've got better linking between other sites as well. We did a seamless migration. I'm really proud of what we achieved here. I think there's some tens of thousands of pages we swapped over, and no one noticed, which, for those of us that are sysadmins in here, it's a double-edged sword, right? We don't want to be noticed sometimes, apart from when it's peer review time. But really good work there. And this is probably why I don't do design work. This is 5 different screenshots from different parts of the new docs.ansible.com landing page. At the top, we've got our personas, so getting started users, developers, maintainers, ecosystem will contribute, and then we've got these sort of different sections on there. So if you don't know where to start, just go into docs.ansible.com and then trying to make the page more discoverable to sort of lead into what do you want to do today. And again, it's all online, so go and have a look at it and give us some feedback. So, We've had some other bits around the AWX. So AWX development is all back happening upstream. The big refactor of that bit of code is all done. And we're now really focused on making the developer and contributor life easier. So we now have open API documentation. There's a screenshot just here on the right. So this is all auto-generated. We've already had some feedback on some of the layout and bits, and we're going to get some PRs raised based on that to improve the layout. So it's all auto-generated, so it's always live. And then over time, hopefully, we'll see contributions from you folks to go and improve all of that. The AWX operator reached 3.0 last year, and I think there were 2 or 3 follow-up releases as well, which has been great. And there's a new thing, I was hoping the repo would be opened up by today, but maybe in the next couple of days, called Ansible 2e. So we've got a that's a textual user interface that one of the AWX developers, Red Hat, is using just for their own sort of quick development and testing. And it seems like a useful tool, so we're going to go and make that available to anyone in GitHub Ansible community. And you can, it's not a supported tool, it's just like a way of sort of managing and talking directly to the API. So it's quick, it's easy, it's a text-based thing. It also looks like a text-based thing, so for those of you that really are missing the 1960s mainframe interface, I'm sure we'll have some. I'd really love it to be a fun little thing. We've obviously got a pixel art Rage Potato on there, but like I said, I was hoping the repo would be open, but in the next couple of days. We'll announce that on the forum. I hope you folks find it useful for doing a bit of like development and testing of the AWX repo. So we've got links to those bits in the slides and the new API docs there. So if you remember when we started all of the AWX modernization work, as we talked about creating these standalone components with these good APIs, in documentation. So the API work that Thibaut's done here, want to get some feedback on and then roll that out to other parts of the Ansible ecosystem. And this is an Ansible specific stuff, right? This is using, I think it's Swagger. I think, if I'm remembering that correctly, it's one of the standard API frameworks, because we use that good open source tooling. So talking about tooling, obviously, we have a community, and it's a community where all the good stuff's happening. So there's 2 new tools that are mostly done last year. So there's AndyBox, it's by Russo, so that's really there to take out a lot of the boring, tedious work from collection development, especially around sort of boilerplate tasks and testing, partly around scaffolding new collections as well. And then there's Ansible Nox, which is put together by Felix, and I think there's a talk yesterday, so for those of you watching the recording, by the time this goes online, we'll get the full links in there. And these are 2 tools that are sort of complementary, right? So Ansible Nox is, those of you from the Python world might recognize the Nox bit there, so it uses the Nox framework but makes it a lot easier to use. In fact, here's the man at the front. So I'm doing a terrible job of explaining on this project. But what's really cool is this was developed by the community, getting into feedback, solving their problems. And I think we're at the state where this is quickly becoming the opinionated Ansible way of doing things. So for those of you that are going to be joining tomorrow at a contributor summit, I think it's something we'll be talking about there to say, well, what are the next steps? How do we have this as the de facto way to make it easier for folks just starting to go, here's a good opinionated way? Because choice is good, right? We all like the flexibility. But, do we necessarily need 27 different ways to do, for our variable precedence? It's a double-edged sword sometimes. So, who's upgraded to Ansible 2.19 so far? Okay. Keep your hands up if that was a slightly painful or involved thing. Cool. To say, double pain. Cool. Do folks understand why we made you all go through that pain? Yeah, we're seeing some nods there. Excellent. So we shifted the security model of Ansible, right? Like, Nils Mahon's in the room, right, and I think he's going to talk about this a little bit later on. There's a load of things that just happen to work and really shouldn't have done. We've got to be careful, right? Automation's brilliant and it's powerful, But you can quickly go and automatically break all your systems at once, right? And so being very explicit and clear about what does this variable mean. Let's make sure we don't leak any credentials, or that if this thing is a string or an int, let's treat it that way. I always call it the Norway problem, right? Is Norway a country code, or is it the variable, another way of saying false, right? For those of you that have been doing YAML for a while, you probably tripped over bits like that. So it was a lot of work. And there's a reason why in the commercial offering, Ansible Core 2.19 is under tech preview. It's not officially capital S supported. In my mind, this was one of the real highlights of the community last year, right? We had some amazing forum discussions. I think I've got the stats there. Yeah, we had one post where I think we had 56 different people replying, giving us feedback, talking about some better ways of doing stuff, and the code developed pretty rapidly. Yeah, there were bumps, but this is why it wasn't released, right? And we've ended up with a really solid bit of functionality, help driven by you folks, right? Because you helped us identify edge cases and giving us bits of feedback that we hadn't gone through, and it really demonstrated the value of testing upstream. I'm now going to be very direct. One of the things it pointed out, though, is that sometimes our community is better updating their collections than other parts of Ansible engineering. Anyone use the Ansible network collection? Anyone tripped up by some bugs in that? Yeah, because a few nods there. Yeah, we messed up, right? I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not here to do the sales pitch, right? But one thing we're going to do going forward is we're going to make sure that my team supports those folks and the other collection maintainers a lot more, to sort of avoid those problems, to get more opinionated with how we should be testing. And on networking specifically, we're going to be moving those folks more into the Ansible forum. Over the next few months, their Slack instance is going to go away because it's a bit of a ghost town anyway. And then to try and bring the communities together and help all these things better. So for those who haven't moved to Ansible 2.19 yet, other folks have been through the pain, and we should be in a good spot. We've got some pin posts in the forum with really good details, just exactly how to go through and make those updates. So, talking of updates, we also killed off some things. So, when we moved to collections, back in Ansible 2.9? 2.10, yeah, thank you. We had a few sort of generic dumping grounds, community general being one and community network being the others. Anything that didn't end up in a dedicated collection we sort of left in one of those two repos, and slowly over time as maintainers and sometimes even companies came up and would take the collections out and go into the dedicated repo and get better testing, dedicated community. If you're interested in this thing, you just go to one thing rather than being lost in the noise of however many hundreds, hopefully not thousands this time, of issues and PRs floating around. Community network, anything that anyone is interested in has been taken out, and we've now officially archived it. Still there for posterity, you can go and check out the code if you want to, but we've clearly signalled that there's no more updates going on there. And I view this as a success. We've taken out the bits that are good. We're not interested in the rest. If at any point anyone is interested in taking over those collections, start a forum post and we can help do the migration for that. One recent example of that is the community Proxmox was something that was just in community general. It's now in a dedicated collection. It's got really explicit testing against it. We've got a load of good docs and quite a few maintainers written on there. Anyone using that stuff? Anyone using Proxmox 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe almost 10.
I also got another interesting note on that. So we've done this for a year now, and where in community general it didn't receive much attention, we've merged over 100 PRs last year.
That's amazing. So the feedback from the room, yes, round of applause for the feedback. So just for the benefit of those watching the recording, when the Proxmox code was in community general, there was very little sort of engagement or traction, and it's been about a year that we've had a dedicated collection for that, and they've just recently had their 100th pull request, which is, however you look at it, an amazing bit of work, and really shows that, this is one of the whole aims of collections, right, where you can go, if you're interested in Ansible and X, then just find that repository, right? You've got people that are only interested in those things rather than being lost in the noise, so that's a great success. Thanks for adding the context there. Another success is the Open vSwitch. So this used to be Red Hat capital S supported. Red Hat are no longer interested in maintaining that, and rather than this just being left to Bitwat or get archived or deleted, probably not deleted, but archived. That screen's gone off. I assume it's still okay. One of the things that's has been great is a few members of the community have stepped up and said, well, we'd like to be maintainers of this. And we're like, great, so we have empowered our community, right? This is the whole point that GitHub Ansible collections exists, is that if maintainers leave, some of the Red Hats still have the keys, the admin on that GitHub org, and go, okay, well, you seem like you know what you're doing, here's permission to go do some stuff, and they have, and they've, they're updating the testing, they're fixing some bugs in there, and hopefully be some new releases soon. I'm sure there's been other big moves in the collection, but they're some of the notable ones that I'm really proud of the community having achieved recently. I do want to do a call out to Mario, who's part of the steering committee. They do an amazing job continually looking at all of the collections that are in the Ansible community package. Do you know how many collections we've got in there? It's about 100?
It's around 100.
Yeah, it's about 100 or so collections in there. And Mario's always checking the status of them. Are they being tested against the latest versions of Ansible? Are they responding to pull requests and issues? And, are they engaged? Because yes, it's a good thing to be in the Ansible community package, but we have we're holding collections to a higher bar than just being on Galaxy, right? And what's been really good is we've moved some collections out because they're not meeting that standard. But also when we started that discussion, we've sometimes had people go, oh, I didn't realise, or we were struggling, but we didn't ask for help, or we didn't know how to ask for help. So we've actually had a few collections where we were going to remove them, and then either the original maintainers or new maintainers have stepped up and to help. And I think this is a real success for the Ansible community. I have one AI slide just before you all go to the part.
Oh, yeah.
Good, the bad, the ugly, or the good, the bad, and the slop, I guess, I don't know. So, AI is here, like it or not, I guess. So we need to talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about the negative sides first, because I think that's probably where we're going to get a bit more passion maybe on these things. So far, I think Ansible's been fairly lucky that we've not had too much AI slop, and by that I mean clearly hallucinated PRs or PRs that don't really make sense. We've had a few. I've had a few. We've seen a couple in collections. Forgive me, but nothing too bad. I've seen, remember, one forum post going, I'm trying to use this collection in Community General, and I'm just getting these weird errors. And I was looking through it and saying, oh, it looks all correct. That's really weird. Oh, go and have a look at the code for the module. Can't find the module. I see some of you have clicked in where I'm going with this already. Yeah, there's no such module. But I've done a really good job at defining what the object was and every parameter would be. It obviously read some of the API spec for whatever this thing was trying to automate, so I had to respond with I can't see this module, maybe you could point me to it, and I'm trying to use AI to do it. That's fine, you're learning, right? I'm not going to tell you off for using a tool to go and have a dig around and get some stuff working. So we've not had much junk. Some other projects definitely have. And I think Ansible's also quite lucky that because we're not this mono repo anymore, pre-collections, our collections are sort of spread around a bit more, so it's easier to spot these things. So for that note, we do have a few places where we've added in agents.md, the generic version of a Claude or Gemini.md. So we've got one in Ansible core. A slightly different thing we've got is for collections to go into the Ansible community package, we go through this quite stringent review, and some of it is technical and some of it we've got automated, some of it hasn't. So Andrew and the team's put together the one for that, and it's been quite interesting that you can sort of set it off running in parallel. We still do the human review, right? This is hoping to find extra things. We're not trusting any of this stuff yet. But it's a fairly labour-intensive process, and occasionally it spot things that you might have missed because it will walk over everything. And that we've had some good luck there. Community bezel. It's also got a chunk of AI contributions, and that's worked well because it's sort of automating against an API. And the OpenWRT collection, and there's a link there some more. So those bits have been, working well. So we've got sort of two places on the forum where we've been talking about this. We've been talking for a while, but not necessarily made any decisions yet about what should Ansible's AI policy be. We've not made any updates yet, but the existing Ansible wording is we value meaningful contributions over spam is basically how it's written already. So we think that sort of captures, and we have had to enforce that a couple of times, but nothing too bad. And sort of the more sort of forward-looking is the other one of how could we make it easier to contribute to Ansible, hence these different agents MDs, or how what are other things we can do. So if you think about how these LLMs get trained up, well, they consume knowledge, right? So with all the work we've been doing on the upstream docs, if you format your docs correctly, it means using headings and subheadings rather than bold for headings, then you have docs that can be consumed and learned and tokenized better. Also turns out that when you do this, you make it easier for documentation for humans to read, and especially those that want to use, say, screen readers or jump about and are better nav. So that's something we've done in some of the contributing guides. We made a bulk of updates to mid last year, which has been quite helpful. So first bits of show of hands. Who has been using AI to do Ansible related things? Anyone? That's about a third, maybe half of the room. Okay. Anyone been using AI to help contribute to Ansible? Two. Anyone? Is it just me and Nerds? Okay, that's fine. Anyone interested in maybe trying that? One person. Okay, two. Cool. Come and talk to me. We'll see what we can do. I mean, nothing else. You've got a one-to-one mentor there. Bolly already knows me, so he doesn't get any extra help. Cool. In that case, if you want to know some real good things about how to do this, stick around in here afterwards, and David will be talking about how he's been using AI to better understand and manage the playbook. So that's a lot more hands-on technical that I think will be useful for you folks. So, meetups. Things have been changing. If nothing else, you probably got a lot of emails from me last year. So, who is registered on one of or more of our Ansible meetups? Okay. Who did not know that Ansible was on meetup.com? Okay, this is so I'm guessing a lot of you live in little rural villages where there aren't meetups. Is that why? Yeah, or maybe that. I mean, then yeah, that's definitely part of it. So, we had a good chunk of events last year. We were obviously here last year, and we're here again now, which is always great. This is one of our main events these days. I mean, obviously apart from Red Hat Ansible Fest, but yeah, this is a community event, so much better. We're at DevConf. And last year we had 30 dedicated Ansible meetups across 16 cities. So we had a good spread over the globe. And we did our first virtual Ansible meetup, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Well, this is one of the areas where we really want some help. So here we have our world map. So we picked, so maybe we've got 21 countries, 37 groups, and 28,000 members on meetup.com. Some of the groups were sort of defined to be countrywide, so we have like an Ansible India group, we have an Ansible Ireland group. We pay a chunk of cash to meet up, and there's some sort of balancing out needed between how fragmented do you want things, or in the case of India, well, we'll just have, I think we actually have 13 or 14 active cities there, and then it goes a little bit too much fragmented otherwise. Excuse me. So last year, Red Hat made the decision to go and invest in Meetup Pro, which is where we literally have a world map. So if you were to go to meetup.com/pro/Ansible, you'll see all of our groups and all of our events. We don't currently have an event schedule, so don't panic if you do have a look at that. But we've got a London one coming up, I think in March. We're just sorting out the final date. We're going to do the first Manchester one in a couple of months. There'll be another Indian one set up, and we're going to do a Benelux one again, aren't we? Trying to look around the room. Is he in here? Maybe in the other room.
There's probably going to be one in Montreal as well.
And one in Montreal soon. I would love for some folks to come and help with this. It doesn't take a huge amount of work. You know, most of you work with or associated with an office or know someone that has an office. We're not looking for a big, huge investment in time or effort or to do this stuff. And we know this stuff's involved. Like I've run groups, so's Mark and David there. So we've got this thing called the Ansible Meetup Toolkit, which is our opinionated way, just all the little tidbits of information to go and make these things a bit easier. If you have any interest in this, and I hope some of you do, please come and chat with me or anyone else on the Ansible booth, or we'll exchange emails and sort of help you out. But at bare minimum, if we find a venue and someone that wants to maybe sponsor and give a small amount of money for some drinks and some pizza, you don't have to do either of those things, right? There's no expectation. It can make it nice, but all these things cost money. Go find a company that's actively recruiting, because they want to get a room with a load of people that know Ansible and are interested, and then they've got a targeted place, right? So it's the way of the world, right? Meetups are a brilliant way for you to go and meet other people and just talk about the good, the bad and the ugly, what's working, what isn't. We're not looking for polished presentations. It could be a 5-minute thing, it could be a 20-minute rant. I don't know, rants are good, they have passion, they come from a place, right? So if you're interested in any of that, come reach out to me. I can provide you with support. We do little bits on the forum. One of the things we really want to do is on the forum after the events. Now we're trying to get the event page updated. So that's the thing. So all of these, so for example, we're here now? No, we're here, aren't we? So we'll have links in there. We'll have links to all the slides and the YouTube recording. Because we want this. It's not just for those folks that are attending in person. We want to make this content available for everyone. So we tried something a little bit different. So since we moved to Meetup Pro, you can basically have what's called a virtual meetup. So you can invite all 28,000 people at once to a meetup, and it was, I think for us in Europe, it was 6 o'clock, and I can't do time zone maths, but available for the East Coast. And then you get folks in Australia going, is this right? It seems to be at 3 o'clock in the morning. You go, yes, that is right, but we'll try and do one that's a bit friendlier. So anyone here attend the online meetup? I think it was the 2nd of October? 5 or so? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's good. Apparently I forgot to upload it to YouTube, so if you haven't watched it, that's totally my fault, and that's one of my tasks for next week. And thank you to the member of the community that went and asked me that before, because I'd totally forgotten. Please grab a seat. So we called it a meetup. It's probably closer to a webinar, just based on the fact that we can't use Google Meet for that number of people, so it was a bit more of a broadcast with a text-based chat, and QA, and we did try to keep on top of that. But what I'd love to know is, we want to do these things again and definitely alter the time zone, especially so the Australians don't have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But, what can we do to make these things more accessible and more interactive, right? Because that's the whole point of these things, is we want to be interactive and get the discussion going. So yeah, we'll have time for Q&A, so that's what I'm going to plant there. So the bullhorn. Bullhorn is one of my favourite things. I think that and the forum are the two of my favourite things that we've achieved in Ansible. I mean, I'm really glad with the move to collections, but I went on paternity leave when a bit part way through doing collections. I was off for 3 months, and me and my husband adopted. It came back and it felt like the same problems were there. It was really painful. We got through it and we're all in a better place, but the bullhorn and the forum are two things that we put in that are absolutely amazing. And we recently reached 200th edition, which is 5 years in the making. I don't know how long have you been around in stuff, but 5 years is a good chunk of time. In Red Hat you get a little plaque if you stuck around for 5 years. So that was the 200th, I think we're on the 217th edition now. So, next bit of show of hands. Who has heard of the bullhorn? That's almost all of you. Right, okay, let's go. Who has not heard of the Bullhorn before? Start 20 maybe? Okay. Of those 20 people, have you heard of the Ansible forum? Okay, so the Ansible forum is powered by Discourse. Really, really complicated URL. forum.ansible.com. You can go there, and it's a place to hang out and just understand what's going on in Ansible. It's a place for you, not a place for me. I know what's going on in Ansible. It's a place for you to go. It's a place for me to find out what you think is going on in Ansible, so I can help educate. It's reached critical mass where everyone's just helping everyone. It's a place for you to go and hold me and Red Hat accountable to give us feedback, tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. So, Ansible, as you might have noticed, is about terrible puns. Sorry, brilliant puns. And one of those is the Bullhorn, because Ansible, okay, tough crowd. It's a weekly newsletter. The reason it was created was actually during COVID, where all the meetups and events had sort of gone away, and we wanted a way for folks to be able to communicate, a sense of community. I mean, it's digital, so it's not really the same as sitting in a room and having a drink and chatting. But we set it up as a way for you folks to communicate. And when I mean you folks, I mean, yes, some of the news comes from Red Hatters, by people paid by Red Hat, but the vast majority of news comes from folks like you contributing. So, for those of you that haven't subscribed, I really want you to go onto the Ansible forum later and create an account. If you come down to the Ansible booth, there's a little QR code, you will scan it, you can get a limited edition CfgMgmtCamp 2026 digital badge for your forum profile. It's good, don't knock it. So, a little bit of a timeline over the past 5 years of what we managed to achieve. So when we started this in April 2020, it was a very basic thing. It was you'd email meetup@ansible.com and say, I've got this bit of news. And we go, cool. And then we'd copy and paste it and alter your words and turn into something, and it would go out on MailChimp. And then the following year we went, okay, that works, but people emailing me in feels a bit weird and a bit slow and painful. So another community had this thing called This Week in Matrix, and they had a Matrix bot, a Matrix chat, so you could send it messages. Ansible at that point was sort of still more on the IRC side, so you could send it IRC messages. Or you could put a comment on a GitHub issue. But in May, we got rid of the GitHub issue, and it was all pretty much, the news was directly fed in by you folks. And one of the nice things about Matrix is it supports Markdown. So rather than writing a really boring, bland bit of sentence like that, I don't know why I sound like a Beatle there. You could put in something, go, here's a link to the changelog, here's some bullet points, and it was easy to read. You could skim through the whole of the Bullhorn article and get a quick sense of what was going on, which was great. At that point, we also went from every fortnight, every 2 weeks, to weekly. One of the reasons that we wanted the Bullhorn to have a sort of rapid feedback is we didn't want it to be this big curated corporate type of, I don't know what the technical word for that, corporate, I guess, newsletter thing. We wanted it to be quick fire, here's some updates, cool, are you interested? No, cool, here's the next one. Just keep the feedback. And it works, right? Because we announced our polls on the forum to get feedback, like, here's the thing we're thinking, but do you like it? Yes, no, quick feedback, iterate, improve, right? That's the whole point of this stuff. And it worked. And then in October, after we moved to Ansible forum, we got rid of MailChimp. It's a bit of a painful system, and everything is in the Ansible forum. So we can see who's looking at stuff, what interactions we're getting. And then, as I said, in September we reached the 200th article. We've had, and these numbers are from September, but we had 83 unique people who contributed to the Bullhorn, have taken time out to go and give us a little bit of feedback about their project or a blog they found or something cool. So one of the things we want to talk about tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time today, is, well, where do we want to go next? Matrix is good, but not everyone's on Matrix, and it's a barrier to entry, so how can we make this more accessible? I assume we're going to do something with the forum, but what can we do there? How can we increase the reach? We're also going to talk a bit tomorrow about social media. Well, the social media has changed, so we know what can we do, where can we meet you where they are, and more importantly, how can we get new contributors in? All of you have done something cool with Ansible, or got some interest, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You know, so there's a lot of voices here that haven't contributed, and I'd like to know. So, here we have a graph of who has contributed to Ansible. Contributed, this is the number of editions of the bullhorn that you've contributed to. So, I don't have my laser pointer, so hopefully here you can see this long tail here. We have 60 people here that have contributed to 1 or 2 editions of the bullhorn. This is one of those interesting graphs where the long tail is really, really important. That this is our diverse feedback. Right? This is from different parts of the community we haven't got known. And then we have this massive spike, mainly of steering committee, and unsurprisingly, we have Dr. Fontaine up at the top here. For those of you that have been involved with the community, that would not come as a surprise. And then we have some member of the community team, and then a big spike of other core contributors. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word core in Ansible, should I? Lead contributors. So I'd like to mix the dots at the bottom of there, and I'm going to be checking in, because I know who's here, and I'm going to look at you up on the forum. So hope us for that. Right, I've been told I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. This is the vanity graph for the Ansible form. This is page views. Yes, up and right. It's totally meaningless. This is the better graph. So this is the time to response in hours from someone posting. So even at the beginning of this year and the end of 2025, most posts are getting a response or first bit of feedback within a low number of hours, not even a day. So this is showing that the Ansible community, the Ansible forum, is self-serving. Right? This isn't about Red Hatters sitting in a support desk type configuration responding. This is you folks helping you folks. I've got loads of other stats around this, but this is one of the things that I'm really, really proud of, and it shows that the forum was the right decision, and it shows that it's growing, and it shows that we've got the right setup. So we're moving more things to the forum. Like I mentioned earlier, the Ansible Network Slack instance that's been a ghost town. We're going to redo the way that we do the networking tags, the groupings in the forum, and push everything into there. We talked a bit earlier about empowering trust. So one of the other changes we made last year was members of the steering committee now have moderator rights on the forum, so they can approve for the first time post, and that's one of the ways that we combat AI and AI slot, but also just spam generally. And that's worked really well. So when you folks are looking at the forum, you're seeing posts that make sense. You're not having to wait to be spam, because it's, for those of you who've been on Reddit, it's just a drain. It just makes it harder to, just mental tax on doing stuff. So, for this year, my team, we've got sort of 3 main focuses. We want to carry on improving the quality of the content, particularly around collections. I want to do a lot more to improve content discoverability and user adoption. We've got some ideas for maybe some controversial things around Galaxy. Anyone notice the Galaxy went down for about a day? Cool. Well, let me flip that around. Who didn't notice the Galaxy went down? Okay, that's maybe about a third. Yeah, I mean, it's a service. It's not capital S supported. It probably should be. We need to do some things there, and we've got some ideas of what we want to do there. And obviously, we want to make maintainers' lives easier. So, I really hope that you'll be around tomorrow to join in some of these discussions. We'll be in room 14, so just down the hall. But I will now pause, and we've got just a couple of minutes for questions. But thank you very much. Any questions? The 10 of you made a note to go and sign up on the bullhorn and get the QR code right? Cool, thank you very much, folks. Well, I'll be at the booth the rest of today, so please do come and find me or anyone else in the team and ask questions. Thanks. Just put that on mute for a minute.
So I don't enjoy myself.
Yes, I know.
Just before the
Just before the talk.
Okay, but then there's yeah. Are you going to be here all day? I will be. Yeah, I don't know in the morning.
Hey. Yeah, no, it's a bit better of a time. or?
I really want to discuss with you.
Oh no, it's on time. No. Sorry. I thought hopefully warm them up.
I don't have the
Cool, you got that. You need?
It's just HDMI, right? Yeah, it should be good.
extension of my contract until they finally do it, because they promised me 2 times, so it will be a little bit later.
Oh,
when
fine.
I'm working for it.
Yeah,
They never did it. So now I
Hold on, hopefully I think it's 2 minutes for it. Still 2 minutes
this is
your
yours?
side.
That's yours as well?
Fix it. That's very small fix. Probably I'm breaking the contract. And probably because I did it for the company, found it through the company, so that's officially.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
But I don't want to be in that position, and this is a very good example why I don't want to sign a contract.
Not a running book.
But then,
Well, so my first job I worked for the Manchester University Conference Centre. So likewise, I always wear comfortable shoes. Does he do a lot of running around?
things run in a reliable environment.
The other room
And
is
those
starting up
things
now
are-
as well, I guess?
Yes.
Of course, then the intention is to have it in Ansible. I know that will be very difficult. We'll have to see. But yeah.
Yeah, please mostly stand around here.
Should be fine, yeah?
Yeah,
This is the
this is the camera and also the microphone. So
Okay, should be fine.
this is on mute. You just slide that to off to on when you get started.
I don't know. I'm not very active right
There's
now.
water over there.
I got my bottle somewhere.
Yeah, there's fresh water.
Yeah, I'll pick some up from downstairs.
Yeah, there's 3 bottles there, so.
Maybe I should. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. I can't do anything of this on my own. I don't have the equipment. I don't have all the Windows machines. I don't have the
Don't forget it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that would be interesting. Should we stay? Oh yeah.
No, I'm going to do it down. I'll just move it down. You got enough power? There's a spare power leader. Are you okay?
What, for this?
No, for the-
No, I'm totally fine. There's something about a button here.
Yeah, and then if you just look on the. Yeah, you can find.
And then the next one.
So can I just adjust this and then the keyboard?
Yeah, I'll want to do the intro?
Yep.
We got a few minutes though.
Yeah. Hey folks, if we could just ask folks to shuffle in a little bit, makes it easy for those folks that join.
The FOSDEM compression. How does that sound in the back? Is that okay? All right.
What time are we scheduled to do?
Let's do 15. We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah, we can start in 2 minutes.
Yep. Highlights it. Have you done a cow save version?
I have not.
Yeah. I was just thinking because we've got the ready for potato version.
Like an ASCII,
Yeah, please.
ASCII version.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit lower? Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Oh. I think that don't have a mic in the other room.
Yeah, the fix.
Yep. Cool, folks. Right, well, thank you very much for joining the next session. So, I'd like to introduce David, who's you might know is the maintainer of ARA, which is the Ansible, the code's Ansible. So we've got some nice stickers here. So David's going to talk about how you can use AI in a really good way to help you with your automation. So
Thank you, Gilmore.
over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get started.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's such a great time to be at CfgMgmtCamp. I'm on 4th day of conference with FOSDEM, but I still have some energy left, so let's get started. Quick intros. So I'm David Rosemard. You can find me on Mastodon, and also I'm around the Matrix. Nowadays, I'm an architect at OVH Cloud, doing OpenStack cloud things. It's great fun. I come from a background for the past 20 years doing sysadmin, DevOps, SRE kind of things, even before someone came up with names for those things. I've been using Ansible for quite a long time, at least as far back as 2014, I believe. Back when I was doing OpenStack things, I was troubleshooting Ansible playbooks every day. I sought out a way to make my own life easier. I eventually came up with something that was called Ara. Somehow it became useful for other people, and I think that's amazing. I was previously in the Ansible community team with Red Hat, working with Gundalo and many fine humans over here. I probably use Ansible for too many things. Some years ago, I did a presentation here how we eventually built Ansible using Ansible, because, why not? Nowadays, I don't do open source full time or anything like that. But I'm still very enthusiastic about open source. I do it, between my own job and as a dad, and doing DevOps and DevOps. Should I ask you to raise your hand? I'm mostly curious. Has anyone not used any of those big cloud models? So I see maybe 2, 3 hands. So, these big models, they're useful. They're available. You can use them to ask any kind of things, including Ansible, right? So big capable models online in the cloud, probably not free. If they are, maybe there's something about them that data and stuff. But in a professional context, you have to ask yourself the question about security, privacy, confidentiality. You're sending them to a third party up in the cloud. You might have a contract that says they won't train on your data, but things happen, and there's this kind of geopolitics thing going on here. Digital sovereignty being a theme. What about local models? I have a lot of smart devices at home. None of them connect to the cloud. They don't have access to the internet. I'd rather have local stuff for privacy, but also for convenience, and I don't have to pay a subscription for them every month. So some time ago, I acquired a Framework desktop, a really great machine. We will go into some other details later. Really, what's interesting about this is that it's very small. It could fit in my backpack. At first, I wanted to bring it here. It would have been like a very cool stunt, I think. But then it would have meant carrying a computer for a couple of days and being stressed about whether it could get stolen or anything. So we'll settle for the best next thing, because I really wanted to do a live demo on the Framework desktop to show really offline without any kind of internet. I have I'll go through a live demo on this at home without internet. I'll save. I won't spoil you the surprise for later. But we'll get into that. So before we start, I want to get into a little bit about how you could run local models at home. If you have anything that looks like a gamer PC, you can probably run even modest models. If you have something like a Framework desktop, you can run bigger models. You can have like a big Mac Studio with 512 gigs of memory. Then you can then run even bigger models, and there's people who cluster them together. But the point is, you can run these at home. So I want to get into like some of the vocabulary, how it works, and how you can try and do that at home. So runtimes. So there's different ways to run models, right? So probably what is the biggest project to run models is called llama.cpp. On which actually there's a lot of products that build on top of llama.cpp. Either they run it like out of the box, or they vendor their own version, or maybe slight forks. Purists in the domain will tell you should be running llama.cpp because that's like the upstream version of the thing. But Alam Studio and Ollama bring a lot of user experience and user convenience. They're easier to run. It's not very complicated. There's nothing to compile. It's just regular software. Ollama reminds me a lot of Docker in terms of user experience. You have a registry, you do kind of like Docker pull and Docker run. Well, it's like Ollama pull, Ollama run, and you can run a model. It's not very complicated. And LM Studio, well, I'll show you because it'll be part of live demo. Then you have registries. Just kind of like you have Docker Hub, you need to host the models somewhere. So these models, they're files. Some are smaller, some are bigger. Some of the bigger models, to give you an idea, one of the bigger models that I'll show later, it's a 120 billion parameter model, and it's about 60 gigs. So, if you told me 20 years ago that I could have a 60 gigs file that would allow me to have something the equivalent of Google, Stack Overflow, Wikipedia, and all these things together at home, offline, I would have told you you're crazy, right? But here we are. In spite of all its flaws, I think there's some very interesting technology here, and so we'll get into that later. But anyway, Hugging Face is meant to be kind of like the GitHub of AI models. That's where OpenAI and Google, Microsoft, and so on and so forth publish their models. You can just download them, and somehow they make money. I don't know, but for now it's still alive. And then LM Studio and Ollama also host their own models, and so you can get them from there as well. Hang on a sec. And then you have the models themselves. So there's a wide range of models trained on different data, with different size, different architecture, different performance, different. Some are more specialized in code. Some are more specialized in science, and so there's really a wide range of models. I'm going to be showing the 4 here because those are the ones that I use and test with. They're really quite competent at Ansible things. They know about Ansible. They also know about Ara somehow. And we'll go into some more details now. And then you have what I would call integrations. So it's not runtime, not models, not registries, but things that leverage models that you can use to do things, right? So a Home Assistant is one. I have a Home Assistant at home to automate some home stuff. It's not in the cloud. It's hosted in my OpenStack cloud that I have in my basement because why wouldn't have a cloud in my basement? A very popular project, it's called N8N. Allows you to do workflows, and it's quite powerful. So you could have, you could ask questions to a model in your workflow. There's a guy on YouTube that's like automated his own lab troubleshooting through N8N. And like N8N through a model will send him a message on Telegram, I need to restart this service, is this okay? And then you can click okay and it will approve, and then the model will launch the command. It's kind of scary, I don't, I've never, not yet, I'm not ready to give right access to production stuff to LLMs yet, but here we are. And then, this is very new, but another example was ClawBot, which was renamed Moltbot, which was renamed OpenClaw. And it gets really weird if you want to look into that, but it can hook up to a lot of your stuff, your email, your Discord, your Signal, and you can use it as a personal assistant, basically. It will really, it's kind of scary, but it's a thing, it's very popular, it's gone viral over the past week, and they've done a kind of Reddit-like site, it's called Moltbook, where the agents can speak between themselves. It gets really weird really fast, but AI, it's like slop at scale, basically. So what about local models? So the local models, even if it's not like expensive OpenAI, Claude stuff, they know about Ansible. I can ask them, explain like M5, why might a sysadmin be interested in using Ansible? Why is this question interesting? It's because it's able to reason, and and draw an analogy, explaining to a kid or like a sysadmin why might they be interested in using Ansible. And it's not like, I think it's a pretty apt analogy. You have like 100 toys, and you need to do something with each of the toy. You're not going to do it manually. You can have a robot do it for you. You put a hat, I think is the hat, red car. Anyway, so the idea is that it's used to automate things at scale because you don't want to do it manually all the time, right? So these models, they know about Python and Jinja and YAML as well. It's not a very useful use case here, but I told the model, can you write a short and simple Python script that uses Jinja to render YAML? For the sake of exercise, I'm not sure I would do that, but hey, that's kind of what Ansible does, but the script works, and it knows about Jinja, it knows about Python, it knows about YAML, and then you have like all these coding assistants like Cursor and so on. So these models, they're able to do programming. They know about sysadmin stuff. They know about configuration management, and that's what where the magic happens. So I bring the question: can they troubleshoot playbooks? So the reason why I originally came up with Ara is because I was troubleshooting these playbooks all the time, and I wanted to make my own life easier. And I sought out to check, can they understand how a playbook runs and what might have gone wrong? So I did some testing. On purpose, GP Mans is not with us today. He doesn't enjoy the cows, but I kind of left the cows on purpose, right? So would the models be confused by the cows? And this is, so I thought I would redo this after the fact, but this is with the newer versions of Ansible, which are actually really good at telling you, where the thing failed. This is an improvement for 2.19, I believe. So it was pretty good, but I feel that it might have hinted the model like, oh, this is an Ansible playbook and this is an error. But anyway, I left the cows because I thought it would confuse the model. So I copy pasted that. I said, what's going on here? And then the playbook, the model actually understood what was going on. It wasn't confused by the cows. So it thought for a while, and then the playbook gathered facts successfully, but then it explicitly called the failed playbook module on line 8 to stop with execution mission. This is a failed. So, easy example, this is actually out of the integration test for Ara. So it's a failure on purpose. It didn't confuse the model, so it was able to tell. So what about something more complicated than just, a small playbook that fails on purpose? So recently, I've been working on the Ara collection. So there's an Ara collection for Ara. Unfortunately, it's been kind of neglected over the past couple of years. I don't have a huge use case myself for it, and I don't have a lot of time, between my job and other things. So, it's crazy the pace at which Python versions and Ansible versions and operating system versions come and go. So, things break when you don't take care of them. And so recently, I migrated Ara from GitHub to Codeberg, and I took this opportunity to fix up the collection, bring it to modern standards, and make it compatible with newer versions of Ansible. There's still some 2.19 things to fix, but I'm getting there. So what I did, I can open this up here. Oh, the link. Can I do it? Can I? It's not letting me. It's not a link. Okay, here we go. I'll copy paste it. Hang on a second. So this is in Forgeo Codeberg. Forgeo Action. It's kind of like GitHub Actions. It's like 95% compatible, maybe. And so I have CI jobs in the collection, and of course the CI jobs are written as Ansible playbooks because why not? I'm not going to be writing bash. It's like, I'm going to use Ansible, right? So the job, it sets up, a virtual environment and installs R on it, and then, it does some things. And actually, so of course I use my OpenStack Cloud in my basement. So I spin up a VM, and then I try to deploy R on it with, different database backends, different OS. It allows me to tell, whether it works or not. You've probably all seen this before. It's like, this is a little bit of verbosity. And, I can scroll like this. Maybe I can do a Control F and hope that my browser does not crash. But, you've seen this before. Oh, it failed here. Okay, hang on. There's some /ands here all over the place. Okay, there's some. Okay, all right. So what I would do is, so because these are Ansible playbooks, I record them in Aura, because of course I do. So I have, hang on. So I have, I'll go into the live demo. You can access this if you would like. It's available, it's open, it's there. So the Codeberg jobs, the playbooks that they run, they're recorded on the live demo, such that if I want to troubleshoot something, well then I don't need to scroll through 20,000 lines of code. So I have labels here, because there are labels in Aura. And these labels, I use them for a number of things. I can identify the pull request. I can whatever labels I can think of. Here I'm going to look for the commit hash for that particular job. I see the failure here. I'm going to go and open that up. Right away, it brings me to the failure here. It filters out everything. It brings me to the obvious part. The SQL migrations failed. But I have other interesting things here. I can walk a little bit through. But I have, all the information. Let me zoom in a little bit. I can even go in light mode. So there's the CI arguments for the playbook. If there was a limit, if there was any other things. I have the versions of Ansible, or actually Ansible Core, the versions of Aura, the version of Python. I have all the files that were involved as part of the playbook. So I can open these up if I would like. To see, exactly what file ran as part of this playbook. So, if I change the playbooks in 2 weeks, I can still go back and see, what was like 2 weeks ago, right? And then I have the details per host, and then I have, the failure here. So I can open this up, and I can see the details of that particular task, how long it took, and so on. And then I can see, something that is a bit more readable for humans. It makes it easier to understand and troubleshoot. And then I can see exactly where this task ran. I can click on that. It brings me directly to the line that failed, and it makes it easy to understand in the greater context of the playbook where this thing happened. So it turns out there was a PsycUp2G thing. Not going to go into too much details here because it's not super relevant, but the Aura server under the hood runs Django. Aura supports SQLite, MySQL, and PostgreSQL through Django. If you want to use PostgreSQL, you need the PsycUpG library. I thought I could update to PsycUpG3. PsycUpG3 is actually called PsycUpG. It's not the version 3 of PsycUpG2. Anyway, I got confused, as it happens. So this is why it failed, and so it made it a little bit easier. What else can I show you here? So there's the host view as well. So I have the CI VM here, which gives you a little dashboard, a little overview. So when Ansible runs and you gather the facts, there's a lot of information in there, it turns out. So there's the server load, there's the OS, the kernel version, the Python version, and so on. The memory usage. So this is a snapshot in time, right? It's not real-time information, but it's information from exactly when the playbook ran. So maybe the playbook failed because the load was high, or ran out of disk space. It could have been anything. Some information there, and then there's all the host facts here. So I can search. I don't know the family of the OS family fact. or you know, the Linux fact or whatever, right? So this is I use this fact feature a lot because sometimes I want to see what the values look like so I can use them in my playbook later. Like just earlier this week, I was doing some Linux stuff, and I was curious what the values of the Linux fact looked like. So I just went to any playbook, and you know, I was able to see, and then I was able to craft my condition when Linux is enabled, set it to permissive, because shouldn't do that, but you know, sometimes you gotta do it. So that's kind of my workflow here. Let me go back to the slides. Where are my slides? They are here. So the question, you know, back to the question: could I ask a local model to troubleshoot this? Could it come to the same conclusion? Let's find out. So what I did is I copy pasted those 20,000 lines of console output that you would have in your terminal or in AWX or Tower, or sorry, automation platform. I still call it Tower, I'm sorry.
You're not the only one.
I'm not the only one. All right. So I copy pasted this into a text file, and I asked it, you know, can you find out what's happening here? I didn't hit it or, you know, tell it anything. And, you know, kind of, I did not know what to expect really, but it is very accurate. It is able to tell, you know, this playbook, it spins up a VM. I was mentioning that earlier. It installs some dependencies. It starts a PostgreSQL container. It deploys Aura using the Aura API role. It installs the database dependencies, and then it tries to run the SQL migrations. Where it blows up, it fails 3 times with this traceback. You know, it finds out the error because that's in the console output, right? And then it continues and even suggests a fix. I mean, I didn't ask it to fix anything, but it went on and found the issue and proposed a plausible solution. So I think that was pretty cool. However, oh, I can close this, I'm sorry. Because this was 20,000 lines of text, it took 318 seconds to parse the data because it's a lot of tokens. It needs to chew through all of that and then reason around, you know, what was in there. Yeah, so it took like 5 minutes. Yes?
But it was on the hollow tricks.
Yes. Yes, that was a, so all the numbers that you see, they're out of my framework desktop, yes. And this was using the GPT OSS 120B model. So a pretty big model, the open source model out of OpenAI. So yeah, ouch. Another thing is the number of tokens. 60,000 tokens. That's over 9,000. I'm at home, I'm not paying for the tokens.
That's great.
That's amazing, right? But it still, you know, took 5 minutes because the 60,000 tokens. So if I sent this to a cloud, it might have been faster because, you know, they have these big GPUs and data centers, right? But if you're paying by the token and you want to do this like, you know, 100 times a day, it could get expensive, you know? It's not money, but, you know, you can do whatever you want. So can this be easier? Of course it can. So Aura records Ansible playbooks. It makes them easier to understand and troubleshoot. It is another recursive acronym with a focus on simplicity. So what does using Aura look like? I talked a lot about Aura. Should do a live demo. How do you get started? So you install Ansible, you install Aura. Aura needs to be installed wherever Ansible runs from. So, you know, if you're running out of virtual environment, you would install it inside the virtual environment. If you would run it in AWX or automation platform, it would be inside the execution environment, probably. Then you enable the callback plugin to enable Aura. And then that's it, really. The rest you do as usual. You run the playbook as you would usually. That's like the thing. So, and then it works. You have a CLI, you can browse the results. You can, the CLI has some flags where you can output, by default it would print as pretty tables. And pretty tables, sometimes they're not very pretty, depending on the number of things that it wants to show. But you can use -f and then output the results as JSON or YAML. And then I know of people who have done scripting around the CLI, where they use the JSON and some fancy GQ, and it's there, it's available, and it works. And you can run the embedded web server. So the interesting thing about this is you can see the getting started instructions. Nowhere is it required to start a server. So by default, there's no service required. The callback has a default API client that's called offline. What it does under the hood is it spins up an ephemeral server, and then the callback sends the data to this ephemeral server. So you don't need like a systemd service. You can run one if you want, but you don't need to by default. So really, it's really easy and simple to get started. How it works. So you have whatever triggers an Ansible playbook: a human, Jenkins, GitLab, Rundeck, AWX. Your cat, I don't know. You run Ansible playbook, and then Aura provides a callback plugin. And then this callback plugin allows Aura to hook into all the events that occurs. So when a task starts, when a task fails, and so on and so forth. So it uses these hooks to send the data to the Django API server, which then saves it to a database. By default, it's SQLite. Works pretty well. As long as you don't have a lot of concurrent Ansible playbooks running at the same time. But the idea, of the default experience, you don't need to run a server. You don't need to run a Django server. You don't need to run a database server either, because it saves to SQLite by default, right? And then it continues like this until the playbook ends, and that's it. So in real time, as the playbook runs, it saves the data into a database. And then because the things are in a database, organized, it's easy to provide an API and a web interface on top of it, right? So it has an API. It's a Django REST framework API. It's an amazing project, really. I love it. It's magical, almost. This is available also in the live demo, and everywhere where you spin up the Aura server, the API is there. It's available. You can click through and use it if you'd like. You can. It's an API, so there's an API client also that you can use to make it a little bit easier to get and work with data. So, So, what if we gave access to the models to the API, right? So I asked myself this question in June, so like 7 months ago. There's this thing called MCP servers. I think when I looked at this 7 months ago, it might have been like 6 months before. Like MCP was still a very, very new thing back then. Like I'm not even sure if it's like 1 year old today, right? So it was still very, very new. And I had people ask me in the past, would it be possible for LLMs to query Aura? I didn't know back then. Eventually MCP emerged. Like there were like, I want to say predecessors to MCP, like function and tool calling and things like this. But I hadn't really had time to look into it until then. So I did this very little experiment. There's a link here. You can look at the demo that I did back then. It was pretty rudimentary, but I was able to ask a local model. Back then it was running Olama. I was able to ask a local model information about my playbooks, and it worked. But it wasn't quite the user experience that I was looking for. And so since then, MCP has grown, has matured. It's gotten better. I've also learned a lot about it. When I looked at this, it was mostly for educational purposes. So I wanted to learn what was MCP like, how it worked, and what was the possibilities, right? So how does MCP work? So I have this little chart here. So we have the local models, the local runtimes, I'm sorry, that I mentioned earlier when we began. There's the registries, there's the models, right? You have the cloud models as well, because Cloud allows MCP servers as well. But you know, on the premise of the talk, I don't want to use Cloud, I want to use the local stuff. So these runtimes, they talk to MCP. MCP is a server that gets started. There's some, I would describe it like as an API for APIs. Like it tells the models, it gives tools to the models so the models know how to query things. And there's MCP for a wide range of things nowadays. I think recently there was an MCP server released for AAP as well. So you know, it's an interesting piece of standard that didn't exist, you know, even a year ago. And then it's this MCP server that has the functions that knows how to query the RAPI to get stuff. And then the RAPI takes care of querying the database, you know, and returning whatever the MCP is querying for. So you need, when you use MCP server, you configure them in whatever tool you use. In LM Studio, it looks like this. I think it roughly looks like this in other tools as well, but you know, your mileage may vary. But the general idea is you tell it how to run, how to start the MCP server. Here it's in Python. Ara is in Python. I'm familiar with Python, you know, but it could be in Golang and you know, whatever. It uses the MCP Python library, and then I tell it, I give an environment variable what server I want it to query. Here it's the demo, yeah. So once, this is a screenshot from LM Studio, which we'll get to in a moment. But this is the list of tools that the MCP server provides. So there's get playbook, list playbooks, get task, list task, and so on. And then there are, like, I want to call them wrapper methods. So there's troubleshoot playbook. So there's a particular function that the model will know to use when I'm interested in troubleshooting a playbook. And this troubleshoot playbook method will use like get playbook and maybe some other things as well. Same thing for a host. And then there's another one which is interesting, is analyze performance. So because Ara records everything about the playbooks, it knows about the metrics. So how long each task took, how long each playbook took. And so I was curious to find out if models would be able to tell, you know, hey, you're losing a lot of time here. You could optimize the performance of your playbook if you did so and so. So we can find this out. So I want to go into the live demo. I don't have my framework desktop here. So I will jump out of here. And I will go to a KVM IP that I have hooked up at home. So, you know, I said it was without internet, but I have to connect home to internet. But what you can see here is that I have no Wi-Fi. I have no network connectivity. You know, if config here, there's no internet, you know, I'm not cheating. There's no internet here. I'm offline. Other than the fact that I have a KVM IP hooked up to my thing, I don't have any kind of internet. Oh, no. Sorry. So yeah, I get confused sometimes because I hit the hotkey and you know I think it's going through the KVM IP, but it's on my laptop, so I have to be careful here. All right, so let's try that again. So what do I have here? I have an Ara server running. It's running GUnicorn. It could run whatever WGI runtime that you prefer. Here it's GUnicorn. So I have Ara checked out with the repository in which the MCP server is in. I installed GUnicorn on it, and it's here. I run it, and it available on port 8000. So it's available on localhost. If I go on the Firefox here, on my framework desktop, you can see I'm a local host here. I'm not going out to the internet. What this means is Aura has no external dependencies, right? So it doesn't like, there's some websites that fetch JavaScript or CSS across the cloud and some CDNs. There's nothing like that here. Everything is vendored, completely, self-hosted and offline. So for the sake of the demo, what I did is I took the database from demo.records.ansible.org. It's a MySQL database. I dumped it, downloaded it, imported it here. So we have the same database, and I have the same playbook that I showed you earlier with the PostgreSQL issue, right? So this is the one, in fact. Yes, it is. So I see it here. It's the same playbook that we just looked at. But this is, offline. Now, I have, before we go to LM Studio, I have two things here. So I have, this is a software called, what's it called? I forget, LACT. So this is real-time view of the GPU of the framework desktop. I will go a little bit into the details about the hardware of the framework desktop just after we're done. But the general idea here is that, there's not much going on here. And I have a BTOP running here, which gives me a real-time view of the CPU, RAM, and GPU usage. So nothing going on here, very special. I'm going to go in LM Studio. In LM Studio, can I zoom this? Yes. It's Electron. It's awful, but because it's Electron, I can just, So I have, what I showed you earlier, but the API server is the one running locally. It's not the live demo because, well, we don't have internet. I have the MCP server here enabled. I'm going to open a new chat window. I need to load a model. So I have a bunch of models here. Llama, GLM, DevStrol, Mistral, and so on. I'm going to use GPT OSS 120B. You see, I told you it was 60 gigs. I was pretty close. It's 59. So I can define the maximum context length. So context in LLMs, it's like the window in which they remember stuff, kind of, right? So if it exceeds the context window, things go wrong. So that's what it means is because you're not running in a big GPU in the cloud with like nearly infinite memory, you need to be mindful of the length of the context that you put in. So remember earlier when I was telling you about 60,000 tokens? That's a lot. Like I'm at 100,000 tokens here. The maximum I could support is 130,000 tokens. So and then if you follow up with a question, all of the conversation until then is reparsed, right? So it's not linear. It's like exponential, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and load this model. It's not going to take very long, maybe a few seconds. I'm going to go in the chat here. I'm going to go here. This is the playbook that failed, right? So I'm going to take this. I'm doing Control-C now, but is it doing Control-C here or there? I don't know. I do it like this. So the model is loaded. It's ready. I can ask it anything. I will ask it, can you find out what went wrong with this playbook? Right. Now it's going to take, how long did it take earlier? 5 minutes. So it's thinking, it's troubleshooting, it's querying Aura. We're less than 30 seconds. It's already replying me stuff. Let's see. I'm unable to pull the details for the playbook right now. Why is that? So this is why you want an MCP server to work, because otherwise it hallucinates stuff. So let's see if we can get this working. Hang on. So I'm gonna go. All right. So G-Unicorn is running. I can query it. I suppose I was running through the web interface. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. Oops. Wrong Alt tab. Wrong computer. Okay. Let's look at the MCP configuration again. Yes. Be mindful. MCPs can be dangerous. Let's not see this again. So I forgot the 8,000. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's try this again. I'm gonna trash this conversation because, you know, let's copy paste it though, the thing. Can I copy paste that? Yes, I can. Am I gonna be pasting on the thing? All right, here. Okay, let's try this again. All right, it's calling troubleshoot playbook. You can expand that and see, you know, what it is using to query and what it's getting back as in terms of information. So the MCP, it's going. I'll come back to it later. Oh, please let me scroll. So the MCP server really it returns text. It queries Aura and gets some JSON stuff back, right? Because the API is, you know, REST API in JSON. But what the MCP server returns back to the model is just text. Because, well, LLMs are good at, you know, parsing text and understanding text. You can do JSON as well, but, you know, so this is what it returns. How are we doing on time? We got, yeah, we're good? Okay, cool. So it thought for a moment. I'm gonna just collapse this. Playbook, this one, what went wrong? So the playbook name was PostgreSQL. The status was failure. This is the task that failed. This is the host that failed. You know what kind of OS and Python version that was. This is, oh man, the scroll is kind of weird. Okay, but you know it found this out very, very quickly. Why it failed? Because it doesn't have the Python PostgreSQL driver installed. It's like G2. So it comes to the same conclusion as, you know, sending in the 20,000 lines of text. And then it goes on to suggest a fix. Something I want to mention here. Earlier I showed you that Aura also saves the files to the playbook. And so the MCP server is able to query those files and use them in the context. So it's able really to get the snippet, the part of the snippet that failed, and suggest a less hallucinated solution, basically, right? Something that you don't have with just the console output of the Ansible playbook. So let's continue here. It provides some troubleshooting steps. Maybe there's something going on with the virtual environment, and then, you know, after installing the driver, try the playbook again, and then optional next steps. You know, it suggests some other things. So the thing that was really interesting to me here, not Ansible, but these local models, like I told you before, they know about sysadmin stuff. They know about SRE stuff. They know about applications. They know about configuration management. They know about Ansible. So when I wrote this MCP server, I didn't need to do anything special other than just allow it to hook it up to the Aura API. And then the model is able to use this context and understand what went wrong, and then, you know, be pretty accurate about what it's suggesting, right? I think that's what makes it very amazing. And, you know, how long did this take? Can I see? Where is it? I cannot see how long. Oh well, it took a few seconds, right? Like less than 30 seconds, so not 5 minutes. And more importantly, it didn't use 60,000 tokens. It used 1,600, right? So because it's querying the R API, which has, you know, it's able to query, give me the results that failed for this playbook, and then it gets the result directly, which is very short, you know, compared to the entire length of the playbook. So I think that's pretty cool. I have another use case. Troubleshoot host is, you know, it works kind of the same, so I don't think we need to go through it. But there's this analyze performance one that I think is interesting to walk through. So I'll go back here. I'll search for some playbooks that I know take a while to run. OpenStack takes a while to deploy, you know. So these are some playbooks that go back in 2023. So, you know, because I used to be involved in the OpenStack community, I still kind of am, but these are playbooks that ran to test a deployment of Ansible. So in OpenStack, when you send a patch to Gerrit, what they use for version for code review, there will be a bunch of CI jobs that run, and then there's some Ansible project, there's some OpenStack projects that use Ansible, and so they can use Ara. And so I have some of those playbooks recorded here. So these playbooks, they take an hour or something like this. So let's find out. I'm going to take this playbook. I'm not going to do Control-C because I'm not sure if that's going to work. And so if I go, the scroll, sorry, I'm going to use the, I can sort the tasks by duration here. I can do the same over the API, but you see, I get the tasks that took the longest here because I sorted by duration. So this one took 8 minutes, and so on and so forth. There's some Tempest thing. Tempest is the framework in OpenStack that runs a bunch of integration tests. So what I want to do is I want to take this playbook. I opened up a new chat here. Can you find out if there are any performance improvements opportunities? Let's try and not do typos to confuse it. I don't know. It would probably not mind for typos, really, in this playbook. All right. So I will ask this, but before I go, what the MCP server will do under the hood is it will not only query for this particular playbook. It will query, I believe, the 5 last playbook that ran for this particular task. Because we're looking at performance, we want like maybe more of a sample, look at different playbooks. There might be anomalies for this particular playbook that did not occur in other playbooks, and the models will be able to tell. So it's going to go and query. Something that I didn't show is, I have, so here the model, the MCP server is doing these queries, going through the results for each of those playbooks. And here we go. Performance improvements opportunities for this playbook. So it understands, what the playbook was about. It found the top, the slowest task. I was talking about Tempest. It knows what Tempest is because, of course, it knows. It knows about OpenStack and all of those other things as well. It found out that setting up the virtual environments is kind of slow. The package installations was also kind of slow. The pip installations were kind of slow. There was some command and shell usage that was kind of slow. And then, see, there's only 8 forks going. Maybe you could increase the amount of forks that Ansible uses so it could run faster. There's a lot of file transfers going on. There's no, I didn't write any particular code that was able to, that would parse these things. The models, they just know, right? So this is where the magic happens. And then it provides some quick wins. You could increase the number of forks that would be faster, maybe 20 to 30%. You could cache the Python wheels, so the virtual environments could be installed faster. If there's a lot of different package tasks, maybe you can do just one. So you're doing dependency resolution just once, and it ends up being faster. Maybe you can run Tempest in the background, and so on and so forth. So I think that's pretty cool. That's what I had in terms of demo. So let's go back. Oh yeah, let's look at BTOP. Oh, I mean it's gone. It was too fast. Maybe I have it here still. Okay, so you can see when I query the models, the GPU gets very busy, of course. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware of the framework desktop. Nope, not here. Here. Yeah. So this is a Ryzen AI Max plus 395. It's quite the mouthful. Really, it's not so much about the framework desktop than this particular AMD chip. So the code name for it is Strix Halo. You might have heard about it. What's particularly interesting is I'm running Fedora out of the box here. When I got the framework desktop, a couple months ago, I had to run Rawhide, which is the rolling release of Fedora. It was kind of bleeding edge. You know, you're running with AI. There's so much new stuff. But right now it's running Fedora 33, and it runs just out of the box just fine. The very interesting part about it, so I have 128 gigs of RAM, and kind of like MacBooks with Mac Silicon, Apple Silicon, I can choose how much RAM I dedicate to the GPU. So I have 128 gigs of RAM, and it's in the BIOS, or UEFI, I don't know what you call it nowadays, but I told it, give 96 gigs of VRAM to the GPU. That's a lot of VRAM. Like the biggest consumer CPU on the market right now is a NVIDIA 5090. It has 32 gigs of VRAM. Of course, it's more performant. It has better bandwidth, better latency. It's like a big card. It's also very expensive. Like, so for the price of a 5090, I got this entire computer, really. So, you know, it's about, I'm from Canada. I don't know like what the currency goes, but you know, in all transparency, this firmware desktop with the NVMe and the RAM and everything, it costs about, you know, $3,500 Canadian or $4,000 Canadian, you know, with taxes and everything. That's the price. That's about the price of a 5090 right now, and I'm not finished. So the 5090, you pay this price and you only have the card. You don't have the computer yet. Right? I'm not finished. You need like it will suck up 500 to 600 watts of power to the point where, you know, the connectors, the PSU connectors to the card will melt, and like it's a literal fire hazard. You could you know, your house could burn down because of your GPU. This entire computer, the firmware desktop, it barely goes beyond 200 watts. The CPU, the GPU, the RAM, everything, the fan, it's super quiet. It fits in my backpack. It has a Noctua fan. There's an option to have a Noctua fan. It's really quiet. And the fan will only ever turn on if I query the model. Otherwise, it's, you know, you can't hear it. So, you know, within the footprint of something that fits in my backpack, not much larger than a banana, fits within 200 watts, I think, you know, that's pretty awesome. So going back to the slides here, and we can almost wrap up. So what are the next steps? I told you about this. I'm really excited about it. It's not yet open source or anything. I want to wrap it up, clean things up. You know, I had just want to make sure, you know, it's pretty fine to open source. It won't be part of Aura itself. It will be in /contrib, where there's other things like container images for Aura and things like that. It's entirely optional. You don't need to use it if you don't want to, right? But it'll be there for those that want to use it. I was showing you this example for my CI jobs in Aura, because one of the use cases I have is I would like to integrate it right into my CI pipeline. So when there's a failure, I want to be able to, I want to use this failure, hook it up to a model, so the model could, you know, work through what failed, and then send a comment to the PR with like details about what failed and what might be the fix. Now I've talked about MCP. There's this new shiny thing that also didn't exist like even 6 months ago called skills. So they're like markdown files that tells models like how to use and do things. So, you know, that might be interesting. And then there might be other use cases. We've only talked about troubleshooting and performance, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you can do once you have like all these Ansible stuff in a database. That's all the time I had for you. I don't know if you have time for questions. No time for questions. Okay, well, you know, it's okay. I'm not sad or anything. But, you know, I'll be around. I am flying back to Canada tomorrow morning. So if you want to chat, I'll go out here. And, you know, there's some stickers here. I was really happy to talk to you guys.
So I can guess what some of your videos are, I can guess what some of your 219 levels are.
go over?
No, it's fine. Yeah, there was some Jinja, like int, this should be a string, or, hang on, let me close this. Oh, was it closed the whole time? It might have been closed the whole time.
We're running into problems regarding hallucinations about the API, like the XP thing, because in the past I tried to do some things with like local models on an actual pretty decent GPU, and it was just hallucinating API options that didn't exist.
So the MCP server is actual code, it's Python code.
Yeah, but
And it was
I think my local model was too dumb or something.
Okay.
I think I'm going to try the one that you used.
Yeah?
Just to see, like,
Yeah, so you know, let me take my water here. Yeah, we can go. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you. There's some other stickers here. There you go.
Het is zo simpel. Als je waar ik naar kijk, is inderdaad. Maar nou, een zettingtest, een test, code Maar Ja hoor, dat No. So I was doing it but let's see. Just before we left, just so yeah, we had like so I had my test week. I'm good. So I like I like that way more.
Yeah, just put the mic back in the charger so it'll not run out to be halfway your talk.
Alright, I can try it out. The HDMI.
Yeah. So please keep standing somewhere around here.
Yep.
Oh, there's a USB adapter if you need one.
No need.
Oh, you can look here as well. I think
So
it's
I will
glitching.
do probably entire screen. The mirror.
You can look over here.
Oh, alright. Okay. Alright.
Yeah, that looks okay.
Alright, any of you can also now scan the code. There are a few questions about Ansible style, and you can vote. And
You gonna start now or?
no, in 7 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So
So that's on me.
please pick the microphone by then.
Alright, then probably in 3 minutes or immediately, I have no idea.
Yeah, well.
If you can check the microphone, that would be.
Yep.
It's currently still on mute. When you want to start, just slide that.
Alright.
And then the mute disappears and then.
Alright. So that will be
But yeah, this is for the stream. This is the camera and the microphone. So if you stay over there, then it's fine. But you have it wrong way around.
that's right.
This side of the
This side. Alright, let me try it out. And one, and it works.
Yes.
Cool.
How do you pronounce your name?
Konstantin.
Constantine. Oh, Constantine,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, indeed.
This might be unreadable.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I have no idea. Indeed, it could be a bit tough. I can imagine. I don't know. Sorry.
It was me.
Because of the green is too close to the white, so it can't.
Yeah, I should have thought about that honestly, but
Oh, I was thinking maybe it was the shape of the ground.
yeah,
No, that's not the
If you
problem.
can put the link in Makers.
yeah, I will. You will get it, but probably the results won't be maybe on time, so to say. You will get the results later on. Probably you will not miss much in case.
I would say these questions deserve to be shared in the bullhorn.
In the
Bullhorn.
oh, right. Yes, indeed. I also thought about that. Indeed. Yeah, I will do that, and there will be a voting within the community on certain of those things.
Yes, if you can do that, or if you can share it in that HackMD, then I can also post it in the book.
Yep.
Image. Highly recommend.
Yes, I was actually contemplating running image that I set for next time release. Because I never use Google Photos.
No, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Take care.
Because I already sort of have it myself. But I know, I saw it on the phone yesterday. That made it.
I just like that you can upload from the phone.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is not so great in the CfgMgmtCamp. It's okay-ish, but it's not great.
There's machine learning, so you can detect faces.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking of replacing memories with this.
So like for instance, we to find all the photos where all the people from the photo, like you select people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and then you'll find all the photos from the photo where all the people are present.
And your server is like helping. Okay. And I don't know. What
I'm just kind of recently.
All right. Probably I'll just introduce the agenda in the way that there are two topics that are related to each other, and still they are within the same talk. And the first one is about upgrade to Ansible 2.19, or well, the Ansible 12 and above, and the second one is style guide. And I will start in a minute.
Not now.
Not now.
Not now. In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
Less discussion.
Yeah.
There are people who are grabbing waffles.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry?
Is that a priority?
Waffles. Use this Ansible. Waffles is.
Actually, work on CPU much slower, like 50 times slower. Yeah, I mean, over time it can do it, but it was uploading thousands of photos. CPU was probably melting, and then when it switched to MacBook, actually that I was impressed. You didn't notice any significant so it was nice doing this stuff.
Finally, it is 4, so we can formally start. I was between you and the Ansible style guide and Constantine, so I'll just remove from here and please welcome Constantine.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, let's start. We'll talk a bit about upgrade issues. You have heard maybe something about that from Matt Davis. There will be another talk just in this room about 2.19. I will go through the things that I have seen personally, and we'll talk about Ansible style guide. So let me start with a bit of the basics. You are probably using one of the options on the screen to install Ansible, and the complexity goes from top to bottom, and the flexibility kind of goes to top to bottom. And actually, I am not the one using option 3 because of reasons. One of them, we don't have AWX or Ansible execution platform, automation platform, and we are pretty much within option 2, but for some time we're in option 2.1. So you create multiple, possibly virtual environments where you have sometimes different Python versions, sometimes the same, sometimes different Ansible versions, and some maybe other package differences. And so where we are, so this slide is pretty much the same as you will see on the Ansible website. There is a generic IT site called End of Life. It also provides you just nice overview. So we are here in Ansible 13, which installs to the 20. So either you install to the 20 and collections separately, or you adopt Ansible package. And currently it's 13, but this 12 is highlighted because that is a special thing. And the control node Python version, managed nodes Python versions are often important. And in case you work with Windows, then you probably know, I have no idea, PowerShell version and whatnot. Good luck to you. And then there's end of life versions. For us, we got a bit stuck on 2.16 because of ALMA Linux 8, and we had some CentOS 7 versions, no more, so we were able to move on to the current Ansible versions. All right, so just a few things, and most of you hopefully haven't seen those stuff, or at least this /succeeded, the filter, which was called succeeded. It has gone now for 4 years, whatever. Some of you probably work with very old code bases, so there was include, and also it's no more. It was deprecated. Pre-post tasks, you might still have it in your Ansible playbooks. They still work. You just don't need them. You can convert them to something else. So one thing left to learn, which were called pre-tasks and post-tasks. And is truthy, is falsy, I think it's imperative for you to use it, to know it. So the positive sides of 2.19, Matt Davis will probably talk about that in more details. He's the one who wrote it, or co-wrote it. So the first one has nothing to do with specific 2.19. It's not adopting the newer version of Ansible, so won't adopt you to adopt certain new collections. And in 2.19, for sure, faster templating. You will not see it everywhere, but depending on the code base, certain tasks, certain things, certain Java things will work much faster than before, and better error reporting is a definite plus. So, few things that exist. And I talked to Matt several hours ago, and he was kind of open maybe to thinking about delegate to aspect, that now it needs a string, even though the task is skipped. So you need to do certain things. You might need to do that. And then I talked to him about import tasks, and I thought, oh, and he said maybe it's a bug, and I tried to reproduce it with a minimal example, and I couldn't, but for sure I have seen it live, so probably it's not as easy as I think. The evaluation of the variables, I will come to that. So, and the generic things is that in general in Ansible there is no so much of a backward compatibility, so from time to time you will need to change the code, and there are all kinds of deprecation warnings. But in case you will jump over 4 versions, you will miss this time where deprecation warnings are shown. So you need to upgrade every version, every 2 versions, every 3 versions, but not every 4 versions, I would say. And so that was the thing about 2.19. Certain improvements are not improvements from perspective of certain people, but rather they say, well, it's a regression, something that works. So the main one in 2.19 is about this evaluation of strings or lists and whatnot. And in case you have a string, like an IP address, and you wrote the code when this doesn't make too much of a sense nowadays. So there you need to understand what is the actual variable type. You are putting bool you're not obliged to put bool on true booleans, but sometimes you will end up using a pipe bool for strings truthy falsy, for lists length, you verify the length. And I would say that yes, you need to look into your code base and find out those things. Allow broken conditionals allows you to postpone this. The code, in case you will use it in your Ansible configuration file, then it will not break. It will show you a warning. Afterwards, you will go maybe to your Ansible logs, maybe ARA, and then you will find out those deprecation warnings. And until 2.23, if not been mistaken, this will work. So allow broken conditionals will allow you to postpone working on those variables and conditionals. And we had certain code like this, and you might not have it in your code base, and I'm happy for you. We had this. We had a certain spelling of true and false, and in the previous version it resulted in an actual boolean, not anymore. But again, pipe bool works with this code nicely, and you need just to put it. All right. And then delegate to issue. So sometimes you might end up with a thing like virtual host. So it's not an inventory, it's not what you do via @host, it's just a host name that ended up in your vars. Maybe you combine certain things. And in case your task is skipped, previously you were like, okay, you don't need to populate this variable with a valid value. But now, no, it can't be empty. It can't be empty, that is mainly, it can't be undefined. That is maybe the issue. In some cases, you would be providing it via extra vars and whatnot. It actually forces you. I think it is about all task attributes, but maybe it's more realistic that you will run into that with a delegate to. And there is this omit, which allows you to drop this delegate to task attribute in case it's not defined. And sometimes it works. It will work nicely in your code base. Or sometimes non-empty fake string vote host, it will be never used unless you will make an error prior to that, just to have a valid string as delegate to. So that is this illustration. So this new CA renewal master is a special host with a special host name. It was never supposed to be in inventory. So, and the entire tasks were not supposed to be invoked But because of import tasks, they got invoked, and Ansible started to evaluate it not so lazily. So that is non-lazy evaluation. So a few references like about Alma Linux 8 and Python versions, and the fact that even if you have Python versions that you installed separately, it will not help you everywhere. So you will end up either with having those older Ansible versions somewhere, or you will upgrade your operating system in case you can. And pretty much that's it. For the first part, I have nothing to, and I will probably ask for questions right in the end, I would say. So the second is Ansible style guide. And my work is secondary in all that. There are a lot of people who contributed with other style guides. I just went through all of them, and I understood what kind of I had done throughout those years, and I made some decisions for myself or with the team that I work with in. And so the list goes and goes. Felix is here. Thank you, Felix, for work on various aspects of Ansible. And we are not the ones who we don't work with Red Hat or something like that. So we are the ones who are just users of Ansible. And I work in a company that specializes in HR software, which is part of a larger company which specializes in ERP software. We are competitors of SAP, and in Switzerland we are larger than SAP. So what is the whole deal about Ansible style guide? And you might, it's not possible maybe to ignore all this because whatever you see in Ansible is effectively, it's suggesting you a certain style. Those examples, you copy paste or you use AI, and so there is style everywhere. But when I give some recommendations, I think of maintenance of the code, and even though certain things might be obvious to you, it will not be obvious probably to your new colleague. And in case you will have more code base that is more consistent, internally consistent, that will be nice. And probably, or you will go to the internet and you will find some of those examples, and you will adopt it for your style, or not, or you will just know that those are synonyms and you will leave it as. And so I kind of last one, less typing, and I will give you an example. So maybe in case there are certain alternatives, I prefer the one which involves less typing. So maybe in case you will try once again, I'm not sure if it will work now, the QR code. So I asked some people around at the conference, and here are roughly the results, and alternative 1 is mostly what people replied. So when it comes to dictionaries, dot notation in case you can. In some cases you can't do dot notation. Second is that probably variable names should be unique, more or less across the code base. But the fact that you can use double underscore for internal variables and R underscore for registered or something like that, well, there are different opinions. So quotes, in other style guides I have seen a lot of quotes where those are not strictly necessary, and I think that they are not necessary. Unless, well, of course, you deal with the thing that requires the quotes. And in case you start with the quotes and you don't have special reasons, maybe you would start with double quotes as external ones. And then you inside of them, maybe you will live with single ones. And in case it's not enough, maybe you will end up with YAML multi-line structures. When it comes to task names, you might see ensure a lot, and the opinion is split. Some people think that ensure is a nice word to describe a generic word that covers situations like configure or create or install. But I personally prefer more specific words than that. Install, create, configure. And an inventory file, I would say when you are a beginner, you start with ini, but YML is popular and people started to use YML more. So variables 101, you have strings, you have integers, you have floats, which are used rarely, typically in the code bases. You have lists, and you have dictionaries, and once you go a bit further in complexity, there is the idea of having a list of dictionaries. So, and here is a list of dictionaries with Venomagrit and Stromae, and I will kind of come back to this example a bit. And you might write the same thing via dictionaries inside of dictionaries, but I discourage you to do that. So I recommend you this structure. But in case you are sure about your dictionaries inside dictionaries and you will manage them, go ahead, of course. But I will elaborate on that. So a bit of this convention, you will see those var1 and whatnot, just for style guide, just for me to later on to manage those recommendations. So it's var7, you can disregard that var1 doesn't exist. So every guideline has some number. So this is the typical way, or the suggested way, or what I suggest when you deal with Booleans and when you write conditional. And so here you are explicit about Boolean, so either it will convert to Boolean, or in case it's a Boolean, it will won't do anything. And the opposite of that is not, in front of that. And not comparison with the false and whatnot. So that is one. The second one, again, maybe that is the way to write variables is not really appreciated, or you would like to avoid this, but this is the way that I ended up, we and our team ended up writing some things. And in those conditionals, I would say always put else, do not then put anything, which will result in a none type, kind of a null value. And of course, you need to understand what will happen with your tasks in case you will reach that else. So you need to think about that. But here, most of the things like this, Jinja with those directive math, I'm not sure. Materis was the one who says what does the percentage sign and whatnot. So those will return typically a string. I will not cover other situations. And so yes, you end up with doing conditional something like is truthy. So Jinja is everywhere. And one, you might not use Jinja to copy the file, but actually I would suggest for you to think that the template module is a default one. So today your script might not be templated, might not have any Ansible within a script. And in cases like that, you will have it as a file. But for other things, maybe it's better for you to put your file, once again, it's a bash script or a Python script in your templates directory to use a templates module, to have J2 extension, and maybe later on you will inject some Ansible variable into that. Why not? And then Jinja does a bunch of things. So, in case there are conditionals within tasks and there are conditionals within variable definition. Of course, you can put this inside the task, but I would discourage that. So maybe you use something that is on the top. So either you return some strings, or you return some booleans, But the lower part is what I have ended up, which is not editized, maybe in the Ansible community. Maybe it's discouraged. I have no idea. But when the quantity of conditions increases because of reasons, because of your application, maybe, just maybe, you can do if, elif, and all kinds of things within those things. And either you put those curly brackets and you put variable name, or in this case, staging is just a string. And this is totally fake example, so you shouldn't be too strict towards this. So integers, the main thing in Ansible is that they can implement comparison, arithmetic operations. In case you don't need those, probably you need to put quotes around something that looks like an integer and to treat it as a string. So typically it works like this, but sometimes you end up using integer filter to cast it to integer and then do some comparison operation. So default, so within the style guide, I recommend to use D instead of default because of reasons, because it's less typing. And then, even though sometimes you can just ignore the type and say defaults, 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 probably you shouldn't. So you should insert the empty value, so to say. It's either false or an empty list or an empty dictionary. And that's it. So you have your handling of defaults, and you will need that, I would say, a lot, but it depends. All right. So going back to this, how when the complexity grows of the variables, what do you do? And my suggestion is you go towards list of dictionaries. You start adding the attributes. You start adding the attributes basically. And because of things like select attribute, I'm not sure that you will end up using reject attribute a lot, and map. You can do all sorts of things, I would say, with that. So it you forget maybe about dict to items as a byproduct of this approach, which might be nice. I have no idea. At least I avoided that dict to items and items to dict and whatnot. And select attribute and map. And there is a way to handle the optional attributes, like select attribute and then defined. I'm not showing it here. But I think that with a couple of tools you will be able to do a lot of things. And then going further a bit to this complexity. So what do you do when you need to go one level deeper? And in case going back to this example with René Magritte, there could be a list, or again, list of dictionaries inside the first one. And you might sometimes need to iterate it in a certain way. So there are tools, sub-elements will allow you, in case you have everything within one variable, in case you have two variables, and you are iterating using the second one, then it's with nested. But I think that there could be another syntactic option, but I don't remember that. So the variables, I think many of you are supposed to run into a variable not defined. I'm not sure what kind of tooling will allow you to prevent this. I think that you will end up with that. And I think that it's better to maximize putting initial value, probably in defaults main environment. So you will avoid some variable undefined errors. Otherwise, you will need to put a lot of that in tasks. But when it comes to register, and then there is a shell module, and then there is standard out. On that one, it is weird. It would be weird for you to initialize .standard out in defaults main YML. I would say it would be weird. So on the register things, you would inline, I would say, pipe D. So where to put variables, and James Freeman here delivered a talk, and of course he showed 8 places where you define variables and the precedence rules around that. I think you can cut some of those places, or I would recommend to cut them, not use them at all, because it's way too confusing. So a lot of them will end up with defaults or vars, and then I would suggest you, when you are overriding, then put it in defaults. When you are not overriding, put it in vars, and I give some further examples later on. And then group vars, inventory variables, I would say it's better to minimize them in case the variable is truly dependent on the host. Okay, but otherwise, I think that you might be able to do better things via group vars than with inventory. And set fact, I will come to that. And other places, do you need them? In case you know that you need them, go ahead. But otherwise, all right. So in case it's a variable used by a single rule, probably defaults main YML, vars main YML. In case of 2 roles, I would say use include vars in the very beginning with tags always. So you do include vars and then label dir, roles, whatever. You have the peer role and they share the variables, and you do, I would say you do include vars. Or you end up with group vars. And which group you will end up, I don't know, it depends on you. I'm saying that maybe you will end up with all. It's not a big tragedy. You can't have, of course, group vars all is a place where you need an extra maintenance, I would say. So you need to be careful. Then you don't encapsulate, you kind of throw it to the world a bit with group vars all. Yeah, so a few guidelines when you are not sure vars or defaults. In case you override it, probably group var, then it's defaults. In case it's like constant or something logic manipulation, probably vars. And then there could be additional files, and there are rules on which file is sourced automatically. But I isolated a bit of the things which are messages and whatnot to a separate file. Like it says, hello, I am that, and whatnot. The email, why you would mix it with logic. So I ended up isolating that. So set fact, I think, is sometimes a bit abused, I would say. It's used a bit too much. So when you generate a password and you use it afterwards, you cannot run the lookup plugin again because it will be new value. So set fact will make it constant within execution. So that's nice. And then sometimes you end up with set fact delegate fact because you move the variable from left to right. Maybe. Once in a blue moon, we overwrite the Ansible magic variable using set fact. Super rare. And there is a pitfall that I would recommend using import tasks. But of course, the import is done at the invocation, so it doesn't know that you changed the variable. So you need to understand how set fact and import tasks play with each other. So, in fact, a lot of those things can be avoided. You might run something and there is a register. You're not supposed to put that immediately after this command to put set fact that processes this register. No, it can be there in vars main YML. Don't worry about the ordering. It will be all just nice. So does a variable have a sensible default? And you put it in your initialize. But then for register, you will use a filter. So extra vars versus tags. Minus E option. So you need just to remember that when you specify it without any JSON, it will be a string. And because of that, in case you do minus E, something equal to true, this true is a string. So in your code, it's supposed to have pipe bool. And probably it's better to avoid extra vars up to the extent possible. For installation, you probably don't need them. But for certain things ad hoc, I would say people are using it for troubleshooting. Troubleshoot that, troubleshoot that. And you kind of steer the behavior via extra vars and not via tags, I would say. That's the recommendation. So tags, first of all, they help a lot in troubleshooting. Occasionally, you use them all the time in order to minimize the execution of the role, in order to do something, certain specific things aimed. Of course, in case you are using tags in such a way that it causes a drift over time, because the system never got this role executed, then of course you need to do something about it. So, but tags, I think that tags should never steer a behavior. So you shouldn't do all the possible things with analyzing which tags it was run to in order to get to the final state of the system. Final state of the system is determined by the group vars and other vars, and not by tags that you ran with. So tags, I described that. For debug, there was a talk of a person from a company called Steampunk, and he described the new tool he has written about the debuggers. I think it's super cool. He mentioned some of the things I'm mentioning here. You do probably debug, or typically I would do pause prompt instead of fail. So just it will pause it in that moment of time, and that prompt will have the variables that I'm troubleshooting. And toNice YML is a nice filter, I would say, for a bunch of things. So in case you would like to display something, it might be not you, it might be the person who runs it with additional verbosity. Yes, so this debug is not useful in troubleshooting. I would say to keep it in your main branch as well, in your code base, but with a certain verbosity, 1, 2, 3, depends on you. So meta main YML, and you might have it a lot in your repos because it's part of Ansible Galaxy role init and whatnot. The truth about that I found that this file is probably badly maintained. So there is a minimal Ansible version. There are distributions. Nobody updates them. Maybe nobody reads it. In case it's not the case for your code base, then for sure keep it. But I would say maybe you should delete it altogether. You will not be able, I think, to publish to Galaxy, but in case it's your private role, never in community, that's right. And then actually, Kirill was giving the talk, and he explained a bit about argument specs that also belong to meta. Yeah, of course, in case you adopt it for your roles, that's the file you will have in your meta. So blocks. Blocks I think, is a pure style decision. So you might be the person who likes blocks a lot, or you might be the person who dislike them for any reason. So you're forced to use blocks when you use rescue. Rescue is sometimes a very good idea, but I don't think that you will put rescues all over your code base. That's, I think, won't happen. I personally dislike a bit blocks for other cases than rescue. I typically split the files further. I do import tasks a lot with the separate files and not the blocks. I'm tired looking at this indentation for one reason. But yeah, your mileage might vary. So import tasks and include tasks. In case you don't know one over the another, I would say you use import tasks. In case you have the reason to use include tasks, of course, then you know them. But this fact that import tasks does the thing that you might use via block, that is a common set of task attributes, I think is super cool. Do not repeat yourself is done via, I would say, import tasks, and you add all kinds of things which are common for this file with tasks. Assert versus fail. People having background in other programming languages, you might know the semantics of a difference between assert and fail. I would say you might ignore that unless you come to a different agreement within your team. I would say that you might ignore this semantical difference between assert and fail, but you might look at the final result. And for me, the final result of assert is slightly better, and it's slightly. And that is when you have multiple conditions. When you have multiple conditions, you need to have multiple fails in order for that to make sense. While in assert, you do assert that, you do 5 lines of your conditions, and Ansible shows you which one has failed. So less code, I would say. So for multiple checks, assert, I would recommend that. And yeah. So, and assert and fail, I think is very cool when you don't trust the input, when you don't trust the output. It's either towards other users of your roles or to other people who are not that familiar with the output of the system. And you verify whether it makes sense. It makes troubleshooting so much better. In case you run into the failure of assert and not the failure of the module itself. And also you understand that the person has written assert with certain things in their mind. So I think it's really good. So assert, there is a fail message, but in case I would say that in case it's the name of the assert, you have the JavaScript name, it describes it, maybe it's enough. So you don't need fail underscore message. And in the case of multiple conditions, in your fail message, you need to describe all of them together, which makes it a bit confusing. So you need to always to get used to the fact that assert will return you the exact condition that failed, and you need to troubleshoot that. So, filters 101. So there are pipe notation on the Ansible filters. There are Ansible tests, and they are using Ginger built methods also dot for that. So lookup plugins, they are always executed on the control node. Why you would use it? There are many of them. I give you kind of 4 or 5. Generate random password, check file contents on the Ansible control node, find files that match the pattern, execute some Linux command, OS command, I would say, date or dig. So for example, even though you will have Ansible fact that contains date and time, I recommend to use lookup pipe and execute the Linux command date but it depends on you. But of course, this will change with every invocation of that lookup plugin. So you need to understand what is going on and what all kinds of formats that you might have over there. Of course, this is the most extensive one with ISO, with all bells and whistles. But for some reason, you of course don't use all this precision and whatnot. So filters and tests in Jinja. So there is equal to, there is not equal to, there is comparison. That is straightforward. There is it's Ansible test in. Is it a substring is part of the string? Then there is a search. Again, there are 2 more ways to do that. But I'm saying, okay, here's the search. So you would do search. And then there is regex search and regex final. So checking if the file exists, you need to differentiate whether you are working on the control node or on the manage node, on the remote node. In the left part, you have the things. So first of all, there is this is exists. I think that is the easiest. You provide a path, and it returns a boolean. Sometimes, I would say rarely, you need to read the file on your Ansible control node, lookup file. But a lot of the times, of course, you work on the remote node. There are no lookup plugins over there, so you might end up using stat or slurp. Slurp for reading the file, or stat whether the file exists. So this, not with this task, of course, with this presentation. So this is the GitHub, and there this PDF. And if there are any questions, long list of credits, so to say. All the amazing work done by someone else and not me. Any questions? Yep.
Can you put the link also on the page for your talk?
Yep, of course. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah.
You can just edit, like go to the CFG, edit it.
Yeah. CFG. Yeah. All right. Then. And so the last, the next step, of course, you can. I haven't left the email and whatnot, but of course you can come to me personally now, and we'll change the context. In case for any reason you are the author of the style guide, alternative one, maybe we can merge certain things. I have no idea. I just tried. I think that there are 5 of them. Maybe in 2 years there will be 10 of them. That's life. It's hard to merge everything into one place to agree with everyone on all those things, but otherwise, thank you very much.
I help you with it. This one, and then you can just relax. Put it on the charger. This thing a bit. You met it? Yeah, you met it. Yeah.
So,
yeah, you should do.
Should I switch on the lights?
I'm fine either way. Like the might be easier to see some of the stuff if it wasn't on. If it's dark, it stays dark. Yeah, it washes it out a lot. I can change them. Maybe. Yeah. Is this worse? Okay.
You don't try to switch on another one because this is...
That doesn't help, yes. Can you make the font a little bigger?
Yeah.
Sorry? White background, yes.
Yeah, that's that's what I was. Let's see. It's like.
Yeah, from...
Yes.
It's just
It should be like black. Make it black and white.
Let's try because I have no idea how you switch this one on.
I figured this out yesterday. Let's see.
Yeah, otherwise... Because I know it goes on like that. Let's see if it works.
Testing. Hello. Testing. Hello. 1, 2, 3. 1, blah. Anything?
Now?
Hello. Anything working yet? No. I can talk loud if I have to too, but if I muted somewhere. Then.
Oh no.
It is muted?
No, it's not muted.
I just share this with you.
Blah. Testing 1, 2, 3, blah.
Oh, it's with no?
Hello. Anything here? No?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's what things. So that's the thing. I swear that I've read somewhere in the past. We're going to face up. I could have sworn I've read it somewhere. It's not a thing. It's something.
Switch is not again to the.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready for the last talk of the Ansible track 1? Are you?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we like technical people, we like new and the best and the latest, but with the latest, it comes with a lot of breakage. So now Ansible 2.19 core has given us something, some great features, but it also means there's a lot of changes and breaking in our system. So Matt, who is knits for us, he's going to showcase that how to use Ansible 2.19 better. So welcome, Matt.
And just so, since we are at the last session, just a poll amongst those in the room. This is a 40-minute talk that I did back in October at the virtual meetup. So if you saw that, like, sorry, it's a retread. We have a 25-minute session here. So do you want me to cut it short, or do you want me to like talk fast and try to cram it all in, or like preferences? Let it run long. Anybody? Okay. I'll try to keep it as I'll try to keep it as close to time as I can. I'll dispense with the like who I am, Nitz Mahone, architect on Ansible core, 11 years, blah blah blah. 2.19's been like what I've been spending the last wasn't what I spent the last kind of 2+ years of my life doing most days, was getting all that stuff going. So just some milestones that came out of the 2.19 project, and specifically those that were paying attention to this was the big data tagging PR that did all this stuff. It was, I believe, the biggest pull request ever in Ansible's history, the biggest changelog fragment ever in Ansible history, the biggest porting guide entry ever in Ansible history, and the longest delayed feature ever in Ansible history. These are all good things, I promise. So what I've got some love letters here. Where this is if from the imaginary perspective of someone who is trying to advise someone about their problems here. So, dear Ansible, I love our time together automating all the things. You make it pretty easy to sit down, get things done quickly, and you usually do just what I mean. We all make mistakes though, and your response to my mistakes often doesn't feel very healthy. Sometimes it's really frustrating when you can't clearly communicate where or why something went wrong and what I should do to fix it. Just talk to me. Love looking for errors in all the wrong places. So let's take a look at a somewhat typical error situation here. So, all right. This is we've got a template here. Oh, boy, that really is small up there. It looks a lot bigger down here. Hold on. Yeah, this is unfortunately this room. We don't have the best. Let's try. That's as big as I can make. So we don't have the TVs in the back like the other room. So that's about as good as I can do. We can shut the lights off with that. A little bit better. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a very simple playbook here that's referencing some variable, and then in our inventory we have we've got some vars files here that there's we've got some variable that points to oops recursive, and oops recursive points at some variable. Like, you know, this kind of thing happens sometimes. It's okay. So let's go to Ansible Core 2.18 and run that playbook and see what happens. Okay, scrolling. Wow, it's the same error over and over and over and over again. You know, it told us a little bit of stuff, like it said, hey, error templating oops recursive, error templating some variable. Okay, so we have some useful information here, but not fantastic, okay? And again, at the very bottom here, we got the maximum recursion depth exceeded, and okay, well, that's, you know, okay, that's a thing. So, one of the big things that, one of the big features that we spent a lot of time on 2.19 is doing kind of data tagging provenance. So pretty much every string that comes into Ansible now in 2.19 has the ability to be tagged. Where did it come from? Was it generated by a module? Was it generated from an inventory? Did it come from this file, that file, where, file locations, everything? It's not hooked up everywhere yet, but pretty much anything like normal, you know, and a whole lot more places than in 2.18. And it's a much better about hanging on to that stuff and being right about it. We also standardized a ton of error handlers. We removed literally hundreds of bespoke error handlers that were just splattered all over the Ansible core code base in favor of a handful of standardized way of like kind of producing errors and generating things. So let's see what this looks like now in 2.19. And actually, sorry, this is going to be in 2.21. I'm running this stuff in 2.21, but we haven't changed any of this stuff. So, okay, this looks a little more sane. So, you know, we look at this here. We have we've got error while resolving value for data. We actually like show you in line the line numbers, and like, you know, this very looks Pythonic for those of you that are used to Python error messages. This looks kind of similar. We tell you what file, line number, column number. We'll actually show it to you here. We'll point right at it with the column. And then if there's multiple things in here, ultimately this problem was caused by a recursive loop in this thing. Notice I'm pointing at the vars file here, where the actual, you know, original recursive thing is. The other thing that we changed here is for those people like in the actual like response of the result of this module. Like, if you looked at the 2.18 one, the result of the module itself, like, so if you were sending this to a callback or to AAP or to some other thing, you have like this gigantic response of just basically worthless junk. We've tightened this up a whole lot. So we try to give you just enough information, but we're not giving you all the line numbers, we're not giving you all that stuff in the results. Those things are still just there on the display. Somewhat controversial, but I think in general, I would say that this looks a whole lot better to me and a lot more actionable.
Maybe a quick question?
Yeah.
Will it work if the variable is not used just in var file, so not in the playbook or in the role?
Yeah, like that one was from the one in the var file. It was pointing at that.
But it was used in the playbook. Right? So if it's not used in the playbook, it will still detect the loop, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It should, yeah.
If you don't use it.
Oh, I mean, if you don't use it, no, it's, yeah. The detection was because the templating, you know, so this isn't detecting but this was just still a runtime error.
Okay.
So the next one, dear Ansible, I know the only constant is change, but you're not always the best about telling me when I'm doing things I need to change, especially when I'm using return values and magic variables that have been deprecated. Always changes. So one of the really big features of 2.19 that has been a very, very, very long time in coming, warning on use is now possible. So we can track and intercept all of the touches when a template reaches out and touches a return value from a module or a magic variable that's gone away or something like that. We can actually intercept all of those touches and say, oh, you're using something that's deprecated. We've had deprecation on return values forever, right? But we couldn't ever actually tell you when you were using them. So showing a deprecation warning is not what didn't make any sense. But now, if your automation is using something that was returned from a module or a magic variable or something else that's been deprecated, we can actually tell you that now. We could, again, point you right to it. So with that standardized contextual error handling. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm not going to show you the old version of this one. We'll just the current one. So deprecated. So on this one, you can see the playhost magic variable has been deprecated. Okay, well, if I actually look at the content that we used to generate this one, okay, so there's a magic variable that's injected called playhosts, and it's been deprecated for a while. So if you use that variable, you're going to see a message like this that, again, we pointed you like right at the place that you did it. And one of the other things that these standard error messages have is a piece called help text. So you can see here, if there's some alternative or something else that you should be using, like when someone is generating these error messages, they can give context, help text, and a few of these other places. So this one says, hey, you should be using Ansible play batch instead. Okay. So for our next one, dear Ansible, truth is an important foundation of our relationship. You sometimes have strange notions of truth that make it hard to trust your choices. Truly, you're totally in faith. So now we get to the most controversial part of 219, which is what Alicia was kind of alluding to. Broken conditionals. So people, these are conditionals in Ansible, right? So, when, until, changed when, failed when, assert that. Like, there's a handful of these places where we have conditionals. We have, for most of Ansible's history, have taken kind of the same stance that Python and most other things do about truthy conditionals. So it's just like, hey, if it's a non-zero value, a non-none value, it's true. We don't care. These things are really sneaky and really dangerous. And when we started working on some of these things and trying to detect some other problems, we realized even in our own Ansible's own integration test suite, we had like dozens of cases where there were truthy conditionals that were gating things or that were evaluating things. It's like, this integration test has not been testing what we thought it was. It's never worked in 10 years. There's a bunch of stuff like that we just kept coming on. Between this and some of the other changes that happened with the way the Jinja integration is tied in Ansible 219, that it's using the Jinja native mode all the time now, we decided, like, you know what, we can't just make this a warning, like, we really need to make this an error, because all it takes is someone doing, gating something behind a conditional that behaves slightly differently because of between the native thing and the truthy stuff. It's possible that we could run some really destructive operation that was gated behind a when that we didn't want to take the risk. So we just said, just don't do it. So yeah, we just let those things slide before, but so let me show you so all of these examples that I'm about to show you are things that actually they're basically based on things that we found in our own test suite. So, broken conditionals. All right. So, the first one here, this is the one that people are that people are probably the most upset about with this. This first task says common shortcut thing to do, and thing to do is just a string, okay? Where people will just say, when thing to do. So if thing to do has some value, like it was in the past, it was truthy. This is the legitimate case for this. And I know, we probably all have things like this in our playbooks. This is the one that everybody, everybody that's got one of these, that needs to be now like, thing to do is defined, or thing to do is not none, or you need to be a little more specific so that to not trigger this check. Some of these other ones, though, can you spot the bug in this one?
It's always true.
Yeah, and why is it always true?
Because the command returns maybe 0 or 1, but both is a value, so it's always true.
Because the second is sweet.
Yeah, actually it's sneakier than that.
Do direct with just a stream, and a stream. This is a stream.
See how? Yep. See the quotes here? Yeah. When you and quotes onto something, it's going to change the entire thing into a string. So the result of this thing is always going to be a non-empty string. So again, this real example, like we had multiple cases of this where somebody we had a quoted expression in there, and then someone went and changed something later and added it or merged it or something, and we had it exactly like this. And yeah, it's like, oh, that test isn't doing, that thing's not doing what you think it does. So there's a bunch of these though. This is one of the really awful ones. You can see, you can sort of see some of the. Notice the highlighting looks funny on that one.
Semicolon and thinks it's a dict.
Yep. Yeah. There's a colon space in the middle of that thing. So this thing looks like a YAML dictionary. YAML thinks this is a dictionary whose key is result.standardout equals quote success, and then the value is yes.
Yes.
Yep. Again. Probably at least 5 instances of this in our own integration tests where just someone was a little careless or saw, oh, I'm trying to make something look pretty and stick a colon in the middle of a message. Ah. Okay, so we can detect this now. This one's also super sneaky. Do you see what's going on with this last one? Yeah, what does it become?
String?
Tuples.
It becomes a tuple. So, yeah. It becomes a tuple with a value. Is a tuple with a value ever going to be false? No. So yeah, let's run that. So 218. This is broken conditionals. So all assertions passed. Yeah, 1 double equals 2. All assertions passed. Yep, looks good. Now, you're going to see, because I'm running this on the very latest version of 218, you're going to see something else here that this wasn't here when I demoed this back in October. The deprecation warning that you have hit a broken conditional just released, we backported those to 216 and 218 just this last week. So those just released. If you update if you're using 216 or 218, you update those, you're going to start seeing these deprecation warnings. These are actually controlled by the exact same. We have a config setting that will allow you to turn this into an error if you want. In 219 and 220, you can go the other way. You can turn it into a warning temporarily if you want. But on these, we don't, obviously, on existing old versions of Ansible, we didn't want to turn these into errors right away. But if you want to turn them into an error so that you can detect these things much, if nobody's paying attention to warnings, you can turn them into an error if you want. So if we run this stuff now, of course, here, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. So yes, it's an error by default. I kind of explained why. The nice thing about this is, like, anytime you have one of these things, almost always there's a really trivial tweak that you can make to the conditional that will work in every version of Ansible. Like, it's probably the way it should have been written in the first place. So it's not like you have to worry about, like, oh, I can't fix this in a way that will work in old and new versions of Ansible. It's almost always like a really trivial change. When we first rolled this stuff out in 219, we were getting a lot of complaints from people like, oh, you horrible, what's up with this? This sucks. And then we were hearing back, we were hearing back the same kinds of things that it was like, oh, actually, yeah, it was a bug, and it was, sorry, yeah, it was catching a bug that's been there all along and nobody knew. But yeah, as I've said, this one is the most common upgrade trip hazard. And so, as I mentioned, there's Ansible allow broken conditionals config, so you can set it from environment config, config whatever you want. But there is that allow broken conditionals config that will allow you to turn that on. And again, if you set that to off in 218 and 216, you can make it an error. So I'm going to skip showing you that it doesn't, it works properly in 219. Trust me. Dear Ansible, I love the power and flexibility you provide with Jinja expressions, but sometimes I think you're trying too hard to look for things in my results that just aren't there. Can you please just leave my data alone? Sincerely, nothing between the lines. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Jinja Classic, which is basically the mode that Jinja has run in for most of Ansible's life. And even when Jinja native support was added all the way back in like 10 or I don't remember when that came in, but we've had this Jinja native mode that's kind of just been out there, but it didn't get a lot of use because it still had some bugs. There were things that we were hoping to make it the default a long time ago, and just nobody ever we didn't figure out what the problems were, and so it just kind of languished out there, didn't get tested great. But ultimately, Jinja was a text templating language, right? It was designed for making web pages. It was a Flask thing originally, and just kind of got bolted into a lot of other things. So Ansible did some really kind of scary things to support complex data structures in Jinja. And some of those things can cause accidental type conversions if the text that you coughed up looked enough like a wrapper of a Python data structure. So pre-2.19 Ansible, it uses a Python literal eval on all of the Jinja results that come back. So trashes data, turns strings into not strings sometimes. So yeah, if it looks like an int, it's going to come out and it's going to be like, hey, why did this thing come out as an int? But it works for all the data structures. So some people abuse those things. But let me just show you some fun ones here. So, all right. So notice so we have a couple of vars here. We've got a dictionary called myconfig, and there's an int value that just has a plain old 1 in it. And then I have this one called list-like-string that has something that looks like a list, but it's in quotes, okay? And then templated int value goes and templates against that myconfig int value, references it, and then the list-like-string does the same thing for this list-like-string, okay? And so we debug that stuff and we look at it. And so I have some of these. I have these Jinja tests here that says, they're basically sort of. They're not asserts, but they're basically like, is the thing an integer? So and let's see what happens. So 218. So when I dump the dictionary, note that list-like-string is correctly quoted, and our int value is 1. So when we access the thing directly, it's fine. Okay. myconfig.int value. If we ask if int value is an integer, it's true. That's fine in 218. If it gets indirected through a template, though, that one that we had templated int value, type debug, it's a string. That's not good. And then we have the same problem with that list-like-string. When I say list-like-string is true when I directly access it, yep, it is. When I do templated list-like-string and we've run it through another templating operation, when it comes out the other end, it's like, oh, hey, that looks like a list. It's a list of ints, right? No. So I hit this so many times, and it's so kind of random, right? You get one little thing changes about your output, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, why did that thing turn into a dictionary? Just so maddening, and especially if you don't know what's going on under the covers, it's like, what? So, yeah. So there's some of these unsupported hacks that people were relying on where they are actually sort of relying on this behavior. They don't always work. But anyway, we fixed a bunch of these things. We switched everything to Jinja native, so none of this stuff happens anymore. Jinja native is the only option. That is a good thing, but there could be out at the borders some maybe weird changes. We got rid of all that literal eval stuff. If you'd seen how much time and CPU time it wastes doing all that in Ansible pre-2.19, your head might explode. And then we also get rid of all this accidental conversion noise. So if we run, I guess you can take my word for that one too. It works. It works the right way in 2.19. I promise. So to kind of wrap up here, this is Ansible's letter back to all of you. Dear user, I hope I've proven to you that even old tools can learn new tricks. I know things haven't been perfect for us, but we can get a lot of things done together. I promise to try harder to communicate everything I know when something goes wrong. I may not be able to fix it for you, but I can make it easier for you to find and fix. I know module returns and other things need to evolve, and I promise to give you plenty of heads up when I know you're using something that needs to change. I'm not just going to silently sweep broken conditionals under the rug anymore, but you also need to be clear about what you want. I promise I'll tell you when you're not being clear. I'm going to stop trying to overinterpret your data, so you'll need to be explicit about what you want there. I hope you can see how I'm trying to change for the better, and I can't wait for our next chance to make beautiful automation together. Love, Ansible. Thanks, everyone. Any questions about this stuff, or like? Yeah.
I have a completely different question.
Okay.
So, lots of the work you did basically exposed new warnings, deprecation warnings, other warnings, whatever. Is there a way where you can have it be a part of the post-play recap? As in, I've seen all of these warnings, and then maybe a counter or something like that.
Yes. So we actually, some of the other things that I didn't talk about in here, but there were some things that we changed about actually the way that warnings work in Ansible in general. They are actually now, they're visible to the callback. They're always visible to the callbacks. So it used to be that there were places in large parts of the code base, actually, other than like modules, where actions and internals and everything would just basically write a warning directly to the display. And so we had no way to correlate that to like what caused this warning or what task was running when this warning happened. One of the things that we do now is there's a warning capture context that surrounds, whenever a task is running, there's a warning capture context that we built that surrounds that like any warnings that are written to the display are also captured and correlated directly to that task. They're part of the task result. So the callbacks now have much more consistent handling of all that stuff. They're sent directly to the callbacks. So it's possible because what we can now do is like, we can just accumulate the warnings. The callback, it's completely up to the callback to decide how the warning is displayed. So because we intercept all those things, when there's a task context active or when there's something like that we can correlate that way. So yes, it is absolutely possible. And even now, if you wanted to just like subclass default, and like there's one method you would override called handle errors and warnings, I think. If you override that and you change that behavior to like, just instead of printing the warning, you could just squirrel it away and then put it in the play recap. It'd be like, it'd be like a few lines of code to do if you wanted to do that yourself. And, there are things in the next, probably within the next couple releases of Ansible, you will probably see a lot more changes to errors and warnings in particular. We've been talking about ways to do granular warning control where you can basically turn off an individual deprecation warning for anything. So everything would be able to be controlled individually or by classification, or but more than just the all deprecation warnings off, all warnings off. Obviously that's a bad plan, right? So yeah. So yes, we didn't get to it for 219, 220, but yes, it's a thing. Yeah, John.
I have a question that was sparked by his question, but has nothing to do with the, with the presentation. Is it possible, or will it be possible, if you do include tasks or include role, to register the outcome and see if any changes were made by the role anywhere? Because this is something I would really, really like to have in testing.
I wants to know if we can capture, basically like aggregate the change status through a role or include tasks or something, and to basically, so I think what you're actually looking for then is maybe even that what include role would have a result. Yes. Like include role has no result. It's not a real thing right now, right? And same with like include. So absolutely possible. Like
for testing, it would be very.
I think that would be not hard at all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, you could hack it with a callback now, but I think it would be, especially the way those things work under the covers now. Like we're trying to get rid of all the magic, not actions, and like, and so I think that would not be very hard to do at all. So that those things could actually have a result. They would look like a task, and the result would be the aggregate, the changed. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you do idempotency tests for roles, you want to do it twice and make sure the second time there's no change.
Yeah.
But that's difficult.
That's a lot. You have to go back through all the tasks. And
Yeah.
Molecule does it as well.
Yes, but that's probably with callbacks or something. But
No, I don't know how they do that. Not with callbacks.
Yeah, it should be. You're right, though. It should be. Yes?
Yes, nothing to do with the talk, but I will use this opportunity. Anyway,
Bring it.
So, streaming output in Ansible.
Yeah.
And that means aberration of tail minus f,
Yeah.
or capturing standard out and standard error. There are bugs that were many moons ago, and they're rejected by the Ansible core, I think, as a feature. Maybe I would hook it to this new register, amazing new register, so that async will go and show standard out in real time.
So, okay, there's two parts to that. I want to make sure. The question was about how to do streaming output, but I want to clarify something. Are you talking about streaming output from individual targets, like remote target module streaming output, or are you talking about the overall, like, the controller output?
It's the first one.
Okay. Yes, we actually, yes, this is another one of those, like, there were a few of us, but I think it's been like 3 or 4 summers ago now that spent a good chunk of the summer building like a little skunkworks version of Ansible that did all of the things that we wanted it to do, and that was one of them. The challenge, of course, especially for command line Ansible, is like, it's the multi-dimensional problem of like, how do you display, when I have 10, if I'm 100 hosts running, like, how do I do that? How do I display that? One of the things that I played with years and years ago was like a 2E callback that would let you go and like, dig around and, pick a host context, pick a task context, and like, show me all this stuff. And it could have done live, but so it's yes. Also a thing that it's pretty high. It's still pretty high on my list of things that I want to do, but it's a big to do it properly. There's some kind of packet-oriented changes and things that we really need to handle it. If we're going to do it correctly, we need to do it at the connection layer, and our current connection layer is not live streaming capable. And so the thing we built a few summers ago was completely, the assumption was always that you have an async streamable container. So it's possible, that's not going to be probably in the next couple of releases, but yes, we want it.
I have an addendum to this one.
Okay.
If you ever use Schmuck's shell multiplexer, which is actually a Solaris tool that is ported to Linux, you can run a command on multiple machines, and you can actually say run it on once, show me the output, and then continue with the rest if you acknowledge it. Or you can pause it, you can see what is still in the queue, which machines, and so you can run something on 1,000 machines and then simply say show me the output, continue with the rest. If there is an error, stop again, let me evaluate before you continue with anything else. And this is really nice because you can also for debugging, it's really nice, but of course.
Yeah, time, so many hours in the day. Yes, it was description of the slash schmucks capabilities for doing similar kinds of things. Yes.
You were talking about tagging values earlier.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of something that I would be interested.
Yeah, it's okay. I just want to make sure.
Tagging, was wondering if there will be plans to make it accessible to end users to tag things for your own needs. And in particular, one that I would be interested is tagging variables as secrets, for example, so they're not logged.
Yeah.
That's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah. So the question was about tagging. I think the data tagging in general. If the data tagging features are going to be opened up and made public API, parts of them already are. Obviously, the tags that we have, now, there are public functions to both apply a tag for. Let's see, we have. Which ones did we add? I think just trust and what's the other one? There were 2 of them I think that we added support for like in 2.19. We definitely do not. I would say do not expect like make my own tags and tag my own data any way I want. Don't expect that. Like I can't imagine we would do that because it causes so many other problems. Like each tags have to be very, very carefully designed. Each tag has like new problems. and if any of you were here, or not here, but if any of you were at the Contrib Summit, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or so, when I demoed this, sensitive data was one of the tags. When I first demoed that stuff, sensitive data was one of the tags, and that's exactly what it was for. We had to pull it from 2.19 because it was late enough as it was, and it was especially after the change, the security model kind of revamp that I didn't really talk about here, but when we kind of redid the trust model, where it's the like no string is trusted unless it is it has to be explicitly marked trusted, versus the 2.18 and before, every string is trusted unless it's marked untrusted. So when somebody messes something up and trashes the untrusted marker, then like, oh, it's a CVE. Like now it's remote code execution and own your controller time.
Yeah.
So we switched that up, and we didn't want to open ourselves up to a whole bunch of new CVEs without having a stable version of this thing, because that's basically, sensitive data is the same problem, right? When somebody messes something up with one of the strings, loses the tag, we now disclose the data, and oops. So we really wanted to get that hardened. We want to get just the rest of the infrastructure good. But yes, sensitive data tag is still on the, we really want to do this for obvious reasons. And you would get a lot of this stuff with the same, things that came out of a vault automatically tagged sensitive, like things that went through a module arg spec that marked something as no log, automatically log that thing. If you return it, that stuff survives, it goes through the module return, module results, so you can round trip those things all over the place. The tags float with it, so it survives across all of those things back and forth. So yeah, possible. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't want to start promising things, because that one, again, it has a lot of implications, but we're excited about it. Yeah.
Regarding variable provenance,
yeah.
It's very good to see it in runtime errors, but will it be also available as a debug thing? So a lot of the times we have code from customers and they use all the precedence level that there are.
Yeah. So if, I don't know, for just a show of hands here, how many people in the room are familiar with Ansible, or have used it? Okay, so I believe Jordan was able to get at this. I know I can do it in PyCharm. We have debug visualizers that I wrote for PyCharm when we were messing around with this stuff to show that stuff. Yes, it's not easily accessible, but we actually have, so there are protomatter filters that we already have that you can, so I can show you some of that if you want to find me. We don't document them because they're not, it's, I don't know. I don't know if anybody know what protomatter is? Okay. There's an internal collection that's built into Ansible since 2.19 called protomatter that has little things that we use, and so you can dig around in there, but we just, does anyone know what protomatter is? Do you know the reference? It's a Star Trek thing. Yeah. I'll leave it as an exercise if you're interested. Go look in the just go look it up. But it's something about what's the quote is. I actually have it in the README in the code for the protomatter thing. But it's a dangerous substance that any ethical scientist in the universe has disavowed its use. So. Anyway, they're very useful things, but there are some protomatter. We have a bunch of little protomatter filters and things that are kind of stuff we're using in our own integration tests, and that we kind of would like to move out to public stuff at some point, but we didn't want to commit to the UX on it yet. So, but yeah, there are some protomatter filters that will get you access to that too. So if you have Ansible console, Ansibug, any of those things, if you're able to put a Jinja expression in somewhere, you can run it through a protomatter filter. It'll tell you where. So. Yeah.
I love the thing about the duplication. Is it something that we can actually throw ourselves? So, for example, as a developer of a tool, I can want to point my user that variable is duplicated for that role.
Sorry, that the variable is what?
So, if for example, at some point in my role, I actually provided a variable, but now it's duplicated, I want to throw a deprecation one for the user to know that it's not using the right one?
Yes, I can't remember if we were back and forth. We actually had public filters for deprecating values yourself. I can't remember if it's been long enough. It was in, it was out, it was in, it was out, and I don't remember which way we left it. I think we left it in. So yeah, I believe there is. Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, and you can of course there are public the methods for deprecating values. Like if you're writing plugins, the methods are all there. Those are all public. I believe we left a filter in though too, so you can. Yeah, I think there's a filter for deprecating a value where you can give a message and a when is it going to go away kind of thing, and when someone touches it, it'll be just like these.
The same thing as the tags. It would be good for it to actually live with the variable.
It does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, it's tagged on the variable itself. So, yeah, not the name, but the actual the value. So yes. There's depends on what if there's something specific. You mentioned role things. So roles you would have to set it on the way out. But yes,
It's in the out state now.
What's that?
It's not in the out state.
Yes. It is. That's what I wanted to say. In the argument stack, you can just say the variable is deprecated and enable the all the deprecation non-decision for you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? And then, just curious, who's here? Anybody staying for Contrib Summit tomorrow, or probably some of these guys in the front? And okay, cool. Well, I'll be around tomorrow, and I'm around for a little while longer too. If anybody has questions or whatever, but, thank you very much.
In reference to Star Trek and the logo of Ansible, you should be able to say here and then back to Litz Mahone. I have this question. I wonder if he got the logo from Star Trek.
There's a bunch of things that look kind of like that.
And the name Ansible, of course.
Oh yeah. From the book. Yeah. You know which book though, right?
I knew it, but I forgot about it. Is it the Russian guy?
No. The real one, the original one was actually I think Ursula Le Guin in the '60s, and then Orson Scott Card was the one that everybody knew from the Ender's Game.
I don't know. I thought it was maybe from iRobot or something. From the
Asimov.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's Ursula Le Guin. She was the one that originally coined it, and then Orson Scott Card used it in Ender's Game.
But it's a good name.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah. Well, it's a really apt metaphor.
And if Felix is not allowed to use Ansible as a name for his Knox project, I would suggest doing Ansi or Able. A-B-L-E as a short for Ansible. If all of the community projects would do that, it would be easier than Ansible.
Yeah. That one's over my pay grade.
No, the one where you can get the status from include tasks or an include role. This is really for idempotency playbooks.
Yeah.
I write these playbooks just to see if my modules do the right thing. And it would be really helpful because you can then assert that after running a role.
If we're bored tomorrow, we could probably we can hack it up.
That would be
I'm not gonna ship it.
Yeah, you didn't shake hands yet. Are you sick or is it just a general?
Small precaution.
Okay.
I was not completely well when I came.
Okay. Thank you then.
Also, last year, basically already on the trip home, I started being sick, and then I was bed for a
But
whole
the
week.
places like these, definitely in February.
If you're not when you come, you're gonna be when you leave. So
This time I really put him on a mess most of the time.
Of course. Yeah.
I will survive better.
Yeah. I try to avoid FOSDEM these days because it's much more crowded and that's much more the risk than the
Food?
Yes, have some.
Did Jan tell you about the thing?
Yeah, well, I've heard rumor. I haven't looked to see what's actually where and when, but
in 45 minutes.
So we got a little more cushion today than yesterday.
I don't know who was invited.
You're welcome to come. We have a reservation for
please.
27 people. We can stretch it to 30 because we prepared them.
Even if you weren't part of it, please.
Yes, because we had some spots left, so people could take +1s. So I guess that's +1 now.
Then I saw
Absolutely welcome.
Where are you going? Because yesterday it was sushi and
Poulet, which is chicken chicken. Yeah, so you can have chicken.
Yes, like this. Yes. I'm a little warm. Oh yeah, I'm one of those guys. I took my non-metal shirt with me this time.
My husband used to be a like music photographer.
Oh, nice.
But I don't like this kind of music. Yes, I'm like very. See you.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit. We are live streaming Contributor Summit tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And what are the things that needs to be done? Do we have to wait for?